Yeah. I also think that like we got betrayed by, Tyler deciding to get engaged here at the end, but then he traveled to the Pacific Northwest to go to their tournament, but didn't come to a single tournament in our own region this year.
Yeah.
Well, I take that back. He was at Kentucky State, but he didn't come to Alabama State, Tennessee State, Southeast Regional, or East Central Regional.
So
like, what are you doing, man? You're falling apart.
Before he got engaged, yeah.
I mean,
South Central was before he got engaged, but
priorities, man. Like
some like baby shower or something he had to go to.
Whoa. Now you're talking. He just got engaged. You're talking about baby showers?
Not his.
That's the cart before the horse, guys.
Welcome to the Threshing Floor Podcast, your premier destination for discussion and commentary on the redemption trading card game and its community. Kick back and relax as we catch you up on the latest news, tournament results, and deck building strategies to take your game to the next level. Now, here are your hosts, John Hendricks and Agur the Wise.
All right, guys, we lied. There is no Agur the Wise. He is on a mission trip. In his stead, we do have Mr. Jayden Alstad. Welcome to the podcast. Your first time being on since we revamped things and got a little bit more professional. So welcome to the new podcast.
It's a new place altogether. It's crazy. But,
yep.
And I mean, I feel like Agur the Wise is just a pseudonym. Like I could take over that role,
I mean, I guess. We'll
Sorry,
have to
Jake.
see.
I won't do that to you.
You basically just said our new co-host is replaceable easily.
Well,
I mean, we do have a habit around here of replacing co-hosts. So
I'll try not to do too good of a job. I won't step on any toes here.
Okay, fair enough.
Got my own thing going.
I did mention that Jake is on his mission trip and he'll be there until shortly before National. So we're doing this recording without him, and it is the first one he's missed, but we're going to stay on schedule. We're not going to let that hold us back. We're doing a good job maintaining the schedule heading into National, so definitely want to keep up with that. But you also recently got back from a mission trip, so you want to just tell us a little bit about that and your experience with it?
Yeah, for sure. So our church is partnered with a children's home down in Juarez, Mexico, so just across the border from El Paso. And so every summer we send a couple groups down just to help work on the school that they're building down there. The school that was there actually burned down in 2020. And so we're working on rebuilding in a slightly different location, like a little bit further down, kind of expanding on their church. And so I was doing some construction work down there, but also we do some like vacation Bible school kind of stuff with the kids because they're still there for most of the summer. Like they don't have like a summer break, I guess the same way that we do here, at least the same length. So they only have a few weeks off. So we're down. Our team was down there, and then that was kind of the all ages group. And then currently, as we're speaking, I guess the day after I got back, the next group was going down there, which is like a high school trip. And so, yeah, we were just able to go down, help them with some of their construction stuff, and learn how their system of doing things, which is a little more challenging, but there's also a little more freedom, you could say, as far as how you're doing the construction.
You're saying that you're not having to build the code.
I mean, I just build how they tell me to do it, but I'm also not really a construction guy, so it's a lot of like, all right, here's this monotonous task that as long as you can drill in some screws and put this together the right way, the same way, then you'll be good to go. So, but yeah, it's they'll be in good hands though. I don't want anybody to be concerned about the school not being built well, but they've got they've got plans in place and had to get them approved and everything. But
they didn't let you run electrical, did they?
That's actually one of the things that I would probably be more qualified to do as a computer engineer major, I guess. But we did not get to that point. We were just doing the framing and some other stuff. So, but yeah, it was good. Spending time with the kids and doing some work down there. It's a really neat relationship that we have with the people who run the home. The senior pastor at our church has been connected with them for many years, like since he was a teenager and went down there for the first time. And so it's very, very cool the way that we can support a ministry that's on the, just past the other side of the country and have that partnership there.
That reminds me of something we used to do over the summer here as a local thing. I guess you would say it was a like pseudo ministry, but also I think there was businesses. It wasn't always just churches, but it was primarily churches offering volunteers to help repair local schools and things. And it was a program called Reach Out Tuscaloosa. Obviously, Tuscaloosa is the place we're from, but we used to go in and they would have us do all kinds of stuff. Like they would potentially have like a plumber there running the project, but then using volunteers to do some of the work. Electrician. And I remember them always being super worried about like things being up to code and done correctly. So like it was like you were doing it to volunteer and you were just kind of trying to be helpful, but then they were like on you, like they were like breathing over your your neck a little bit to make sure things were done, just because the city is so like adamant about things being done correctly in schools and all for safety and stuff. So if you were able to avoid a little bit of that and just work on framing, I could see that being a lot easier. Yeah,
it was nice. And like, I mean, they kind of check to make sure that things are put together right. And like they'll fix it and stuff. And they have guys down there who, know what they're doing, and we're just kind of helping them out. And then for like the teens and stuff, they mostly let them do like the painting projects and stuff like that, where like they've got their little like basketball court that we're, I guess had some construction people come and like they had to dig up part of the basketball court, and then they were like, all right, sorry, you guys got to fill this in. And so we got to do like repainting over that. And it was, then we redid the backboards and, aligned the hoops, that kind of stuff. So it's different little things to make the kids' lives easier. We put in some like tinting on the windows so it wouldn't get quite as hot, and ways to support them. So definitely a good variety of things to do. But those of us who are, at least somewhat handy, I guess, could help out with the construction stuff.
Well, that's cool. Always good to give back and stuff, especially when you can involve kids and stuff. I feel like going through that over the summer, I know like our church does like a serve week type thing to where kids do different things. And when I had like a little over a year where I was the youth pastor at our church, just as kind of a fill-in thing in a transition period. And we used to go and we'd do fundraisers by going and working in people's homes, doing yard work for, like older church members that couldn't do it and stuff, and seeing the kids work and actually have to put in some effort to, go to camp if their family couldn't afford to just pay for it outright and things. Feel like that teaches them like a little bit of responsibility and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yes. Anyway, as far as outlining this episode and what we're expecting here without Jake, obviously, I know we renamed it last week Tyler the Creator, but we're going to skip the Agur the Creator, so you won't get any cool card concepts that push the boundaries of the game from him. But we will be bringing back Deck of the Week, so we'll pick a deck and we'll highlight it, and then we'll just go through. Obviously, we've got some spoilers from Israel's Inheritance, as Nationals is right upon us. I don't know how much more we're going to get, but we do have 3 from this week that we are going to go over. We've got the last 3 tournaments, or big tournaments anyway, with 3 regionals. We've got East Central regional results, Midwest regionals, and North Central regionals, which obviously you didn't get to go with your trip. So last episode I teased that you could you could duke it out with Justin for regional points for type 2 or whatever or something. And then he messaged me and he was like, yeah, he's not going to be here. I was like, fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like, so I left on Saturday, which was the Saturday of North Central Regionals, and then I got back on Friday, which was the Friday of Midwest Regionals. So if they were flipped, then maybe I could have made it to North Central Regionals for just Saturday. But I got back at like 7 p.m. on Friday and was like, yeah, I'm not driving to Michigan overnight but I mean, I probably would have got to play everything. They didn't have that big of a turnout. So
yeah, that's not a knock.
No.
It's just quoting facts. But yeah, and then we'll obviously take those results and also the results from the unofficial tournaments, the Lackey Grand Prix and the Zoom Discord, and we'll compile those into our algorithm to give us the final power rankings heading into nationals. So we'll have the top 10 power rankings there. And next week, the next episode, not next week, but the next episode, we're planning to have one drop the Wednesday of Nationals week. So as you're traveling in, you can listen to the episode. We're planning on doing some fun things, forecasting nationals, kind of talking about where we expect people to potentially finish and things. Jake mentioned maybe doing like a draft of like, we'll draft players and see which one of us draft the most like category winners or placings. I don't know if we'll do that, but we'll use the power rankings kind of set up, and I think we'll rank how we think players, like the odds to finish in first place among certain categories and things. And maybe we break that down by sealed booster, type 1, type 2, and all of that. Because I feel like there's people that haven't played a lot this tournament season that still have a legitimate shot to win nationals. Like, out of nowhere, you can see Josh Potratz win, and you wouldn't have to be like, oh, where did this guy come from? You just kind of expect it. But he hasn't played a lot this tournament season, so he hasn't been on the rankings a lot.
Yeah.
And I think
or
we
Luke
can just
Marshall.
Yep. Or Nick Marshall. Or any Marshall.
Or yeah, Nick Marshall. I guess, yeah, Luke, I mean...
I mean, Luke's pretty good too, but yeah okay. Now we're going to get the Marshalls mad at us on the podcast.
I'm just trying to generate some motivation, be like, all right, now they gotta
now we got to show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought that would be cool to use the power rankings as kind of a setup to rank where we think people will finish at nationals and not necessarily just based on the results of the tournament season. So this power rankings will be kind of where everybody stands heading into nationals based on their body of work currently, where we feel people are at. And then next episode, we'll use it for that. Also for next episode, short of saying exactly who it is, because I was told by Jayden here that we should just tease it a little bit. We're going to have a pretty...
Sorry, everybody.
Pretty significant guest on the episode. One of the biggest names in Redemption history, I guess you could say. We do have a pretty good commitment that we'll be able to get the recording in. We're still working on scheduling that, but hopefully we'll have that on that episode that releases Wednesday of Nationals Week, and I think it will help us capitalize kind of on the excitement of Nationals Week. So we've got that to look forward to. Also, I guess I mentioned that I would talk about it a little bit on the podcast. I don't want to talk about it too much, but we did cross 10,000 streams, downloads, or listens.
10,000.
Yes, on the podcast. And these also do not count any of the YouTube listens or views. I mean, technically they're views, but most people put it on and they listen to it. But all of those, if you go and look for them on YouTube, you will see that all those videos actually got deleted because they added an option on Podbean for us to do the RSS feed to automatically upload, and I was having to manually upload. So when I manually upload, it wasn't tied into the statistics. So when I switched over to the RSS feed, now all of those are calibrated into the stats and recognized through that. But previously, if you were someone that listened on the podcast or listened to the podcast through YouTube, you didn't help us with the statistics here. But now you will.
Go back and listen to everything on.
Yeah, we'll need you to redo
Spotify,
everything so that we can get accurate statistics. But with 10,000 downloads at 79 episodes, I did that the other day. Let me pull up the calculator. I'll do it again. 79. That's 126 point something per episode. And obviously it'd be a little bit more with the YouTube, but I feel like that's a healthy, almost 3-year run for us.
That's pretty good, yeah.
So I am definitely, I guess, excited to see that we are maintaining at least a healthy listening per episode.
Yeah, I didn't look at my YouTube stats to see how I compare, so it's probably for the best, though. I don't want to embarrass myself.
You're beating us in subscribers on the podcast, though. I think my YouTube channel has like 70-something subscribers. I'm sure you're beating me there, so you can take solace in that.
All right. Get something at least.
But, all right, we'll just move in and start talking about the recent happenings for the game here. And obviously, we've started the last 2 episodes talking about it in great detail, and we're not going to change it now. Why? But we're talking about the road to nationals. It's August 1st through 3rd. And at the time of release, we're 15 days away. You can almost count it down on one hand.
That's crazy.
On
just
2
need
hands.
1 foot.
Yeah, just 2 hands and 1 foot. You'll be able to count it down.
Yeah.
But the tournament is at Allendale Baptist Church. That's Ron Sias's church in Allendale, Michigan, hosted by Jay Chambers and Ron Sias. There was a mention by Mark Valake about some low registration numbers for this side event at Primeval Games in Kentwood, Michigan. So if you are wanting a chance to get into Mr. Classic, I mean, it might be a smaller field, but you can go there. The winner will be entered into the Mr. Classic field. You'll get an invite based on winning that. But then the top 2 winners are going to get custom deck boxes, one featuring 3 Woes artwork, and then one featuring artwork that has not yet been spoiled from the new set. So if you're interested in that, make sure you pre-register, let them know. And then also the first 100 to pre-register are going to get 2 negated tokens that are made by Zach. He goes by the Jambi, I believe is how you say it, for his screen name. Those tokens, I believe he posted a picture in Discord. I'm not sure. I believe it was in the Nationals 2024 channel. So you can go and check out what those tokens are going to look like. And then you get 2 per pre-registering. So if you're taking a kid like me, just do a second registration form and you get 2 more.
I knew I wasn't doing something right.
Yeah. You don't put 2 on the same form. You do a separate form so you get 2 more tokens. You got to learn how to play the game.
Yeah, I got to maybe see if got a few nieces and nephews that are available.
Yeah. Well, what's crazy is I was at the tournament this past weekend for East Central Regionals, and Chris handed me my participation promos or whatever. Mm-hmm. And obviously it's last year's was Magic Charms and this year's is Judean Mediums.
Yep.
And I was like, man, it feels bad. He was like, what? I was like, only getting one of these because I'm so used to Keegan going. Keegan didn't go to this tournament. He decided to stay home and hang out with friends. But I'm so used to getting 2 promos at each tournament. And it just felt empty. I felt cold inside because I didn't get 2. So travel with your kids and get extra promos.
There you go.
But anyway, Nationals, I mean, I don't see any reason that we aren't expecting to have a great time there.
So we all know how you feel about classic cards, I think, but are you pre-registered for the side event? Are you planning to play?
I am not. And there's 2 reasons. 2 reasons is because I haven't had time to build a classic deck. I mean, I feel like that's a legitimate thing.
No, but
yeah. Okay. And the second thing is we have the Airbnb that we rented and check-ins there, and I just feel like after driving 6 to 8 hours, because we're potentially going to stay at Oakdale, where I meet up with Brian and then drive the second half of a trip. So obviously Alabama to Kentucky and then Kentucky to Michigan. I just feel like checking into an Airbnb where there's beds, there's hangout room, it's going to be hard to get me out of there. So naturally, like, I don't know if I want to like put stuff down and then rush to get there in time to play in the tournament. Plus not having the deck built.
I'll put together the Scrolls only deck that you used last year and you can just use that.
So I can get 2 more or get another loss with it.
I mean, I feel like even if you're not I think that was something that Mark said, like, even if you're not necessarily sure if you'll be able to make it to Mr. Classic, or if you do win, or you're not like super interested in playing at Mr. Classic, even like still going and getting those sleeves and stuff, like, and
for sure,
deck boxes and stuff. It's pretty good.
Yeah, if it's something that you can do, and obviously I could take a Type 1, rotation deck and play, because it's all cards that are legal except for what's been banned. So you don't have to build a Classic. I just feel like if you're going to call something a Classic event, I kind of want to play some Classic cards. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
But definitely, if you have the opportunity to go and play and you're interested in winning those deck boxes, because at least the Three Woes one looks pretty good. And then obviously we don't know what the other one looks like. But I think Mark's got a pretty solid track record for coming up with some cool designs.
Right. And I mean, the art that we've seen from the new set so far has been pretty good. So
yeah. I mean, we can all just assume it's going to be something to do with the Purple Warriors with the sick artwork.
Probably.
So, and you can already win the sleeves, because there will be, for anybody that pre-registers, there's 2 sets of custom sleeves being given away, I believe. And it's just a drawing. You pre-register for nationals, and they're going to draw names, and at least one of those sleeves is the artwork for, how do you say the guy's name? I feel like everybody says Benaniah, but then it's Benaiah.
Benaiah. Yeah, there's only one N.
Yeah, Benaiah, the Lion Slayer. So if you want some sick sleeves, pre-register for nationals. Maybe you win the sleeves, and then maybe you get, it could be a matching deck box if you win the side event. So
right.
I don't know. Don't do like me. Go and play in the event.
Yeah.
Don't let me be a bad example for you. I'm trying to save all my losses for nationals.
It's like an 8-9 hour drive for us. So definitely got to leave a little early on Wednesday in order to get there in time to not just have to play right away as soon as we walk out of the car. But we'll see.
And see, I like everybody has these long drives. That's great, because if we drop that episode with that special guest, then we're not going to say who it is quite yet. But I feel like we might have a solid chance to break the record on like day 1 release views.
Yeah.
Everybody trapped in a car listening to the podcast. But the problem is you'll have like 6 people in the car listening one time. So it only counts as one.
Right.
So it might work against us.
But here's the question though. Do you think you'll be able to get that guest to talk for 8 hours, just so I have something to listen to throughout the whole drive?
Something tells me 8 hours is out of the question. Now, if it was John Early that was on, I think we could do that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe one year we can set up to have like John Early join the podcast, and we podcast and live stream our road trips to nationals.
Oh, there we go.
That could be interesting.
It's usually some good conversations going on the way to nationals. Yeah.
I'm not sure they're all like podcast appropriate though, or that like people would care about some of them because of like inside jokes and things. So
right.
I guess I don't know.
Or just like stops for dinner or potty breaks.
I don't know. Maybe we can find some way to incorporate that. I mean, we could get Alex to help us out. He used to do videos from the car, so he's got some experience.
There we go. See what kind of equipment he's got.
Yeah.
Phone mount.
But anyway, we'll move on and talk about community content. And we got a lot from Mr. Babooni Tim. You want to spotlight these?
Yeah, he has been cranking them out. He's got lots of the online tournament like gameplay stuff. So the Nativity versus Goldeneye and his Rob M tournament against the Guardian, Mr. Jayden Alstad, guy I am familiar with fairly well. And a guy that I feel like Tim has been getting a lot more familiar with, because it seems like they're playing at the top of both. Like they're 2 of the people that are playing in both of these fairly regularly, and they end up playing each other in just about every one, I think. So along those lines, you also have the Nativity versus Golden Nativity, the Lackey Grand Prix top 4 semifinals game that was against the Guardian. And then he's also got the Rob M tournament match final game against Rooted Red, Jay Flooded Red. I don't know. I don't know if you guys have decided on what to call him yet, but
I did. I don't know if you heard on the podcast, but the problem is Jay has changed his name on some servers, but not others. So,
right, gotcha.
like some servers, he's rooted red. Some servers, he's flooded red. So I think he just enjoys listening and hearing us not know which one to call him. I think it's intentional at this point.
Are you sure that he listens though? I don't know. See.
Well, I guess that is a valid point. He's always so busy, you know.
Come on, Jay, step it up.
So busy coming in second in these online tournaments.
But this one is particularly interesting. I've been out of town and haven't gotten to watch any of these. I usually just have them on, like listening to them while I'm at work, and I haven't been at work for the last week. So that's but this one in particular I do want to check out because it's Nativity Herods versus Post-Exilic Thieves, which I have to imagine is the deck that Jay was running, and I'm interested to see how the posties are doing because I haven't really checked in with them for a while. We're losing touch here.
Yeah, you're losing touch with them. I'm losing touch with Blue. It's everybody's playing GOC.
Yep. It's unfortunate, but and then everybody is playing GOC, and I think Tim outlines that. I would assume so. This is another one I haven't gotten to listen through yet, but he's got another video which is the metagame thoughts before nationals, and I think I saw this one and it was like already over 100 views or something like that, which is crazy. I mean, obviously Tim always puts out good, entertaining content, so it's not surprising that people listen to it, but just with the size of the redemption community and also just, I don't know, people are just excited for nationals maybe. That could be it.
Well, people want to do well at nationals, so, and if you're going to drop the playbook.
A few people that are just listening to it on repeat, over and over again while they sleep, just to...
Tim's doing that to try to get some ad revenue started up.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yep. There we go. No, but yeah, I'm sure that's a good, helpful video to listen to or watch if you haven't already, which seems like many people probably already have. So you'd be more qualified to talk about it than I am. But that's what we got from Babuni Tim.
Yep. And kind of along the same lines, Tyler Talks dropped his video, and it's kind of ironic because he just got engaged and now he's trying to tell us it's time to commit, which is like him. Like, how long did it take you, man? It's time to commit. But instead of committing to a future wife, this video is talking about committing to your deck, figuring out what you're going to play at nationals, and kind of just solidifying that so that you can start working on knowing your deck, because Tyler's one of those that talks about it in, like, every year. It's just, he tries to ingrain it into people. Know your deck. You should be able to write your deck out without looking at it. And most of us struggle to write out our reserves without looking at it, let alone the entire deck. If your deck list got wiped out of Lackey, how long would it take you to rebuild it? And could you rebuild it exactly? I feel like most people would be like, no. And that's what Tyler is always preaching. So this video is talking about committing to that and making tweaks and stuff for nationals. So at least the little bit that I watched, I did not finish it. I started it much like I do your videos, and then I get busy at work and I never go back to it. So I always know what the beginning of the video is about.
Sounds like you're not committing.
I did not commit. He also has another video that says Crimson has more to offer, and I'm not real sure what the main thing that he's trying to push here. Obviously, there's a lot of great plays within Crimson. I know we have the Thieves. We got a few animal things from Israel's rebellion, and obviously we've got some good pieces already, like the Seized by Babylon's a good card. Even King Nebuchadnezzar with tossing the next, and potentially against a big band off of Resurrection getting to toss the next and play an enhancement. I mean, it's a pretty good play that, not a lot of people are throwing into their decks just because it's not the cutting edge new thing. But Crimson has a lot of cool things, so I'm sure he's talking about the depth of what that brigade can offer. Plus, we should all be excited because Edomite's coming out. From what I've seen, they look like they're going to be awesome. Yep. And I know we saw the one where you can make him super big, or you can make him 1/1 or whatever, super small. The what was it? The Terrified Chiefs or something like that. That was. It feels bad to not know the spoiler that was dropped on the podcast last episode, but
that was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I've done forgot it.
Yeah, we got new spoilers to worry about.
Yes, but anyway, like they look like they're going to be interesting, and so Crimson's going to get a little bit more of a buff. Plus, Thieves are really good, especially when you can blend them with the demon stuff from GOC. So there's a lot of things that brigade can offer. I have no idea what he's talking about here, so go and watch the video. I'm just saying there's a good breadth of strategy you can do within that brigade.
Yeah. I haven't watched either, but I did see the thumbnail, and it just kind of looked like a D-heavy, like Crimson defense. So I was just
of course it would be D-heavy.
Well, yeah, it's Tyler, so, but it's
Tyler's always pumping it.
I mean, I say D-heavy, but I think it could very well just be a balanced deck. I'm not looking at it right now, so I don't remember for sure. But
isn't balanced D-heavy now?
Yeah,
like with the current right. state of the game.
Yeah, but like it's just kind of the splash, like probably mostly the core of Thieves, but yeah, a few of the animals and Nebby stuff splashed in there. So Crimson is good. Speaking
of Crimson, I think one of the coolest plays is using your Golgotha to grab moths, which is able to be targeted by Golgotha's search. And then you don't even have to play enhancements on it most of the time. It just comes in and does its job. Right. So, I mean, that's another cool little sneaky thing that you could throw into a GOC deck using moths, which came out in Roots.
One of the plays that I was able to make recently playing Crimson was to use Mocking Thief to grab Tenants Kill the Sun from my opponent's deck, and then play that off of Den of Thieves to abandon my Nebuchadnezzar to basically do what offenses are doing now, where they abandon the toss the next and then have the removal. So I'd abandon my Nebuchadnezzar to toss the next and then discard their hero.
I mean, it works great if they're a lone hero.
Right, yeah.
But, I mean...
it's few and far between these days. But
yeah. Although if they do try to do that and like they're playing, what is it, Honeypot with Pot of Mana, and they're restricting themselves, and you can... well, I guess that would mess up your ban.
Yeah.
So, because it's a restrict, not a negate. Well, yeah. So I don't know how effective that play is against the current meta.
Play for
it is cool nonetheless.
Yeah.
That's probably one you could pull off in Booster though, potentially.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really one that you plan to pull off because you're using your opponent's Tenants Kill the Sun, but a lot of people are running that. So if you just get there and you can do it over and over again with fence jumpers, then yeah, I like Thieves. Definitely one of the more fun defenses to play, and they're, seem to be getting a little bit more into the spotlight. They were kind of out of it for a season, I think, but
and then Jared brought them back.
Yeah.
I think that's where they were always there, and there were still some people even playing them, but Jared doing really well with them, and especially the Den of Thieves play, being able to win that huge Lackey Grand Prix that we had.
Right.
I think that gave them a little bit more clout, so to speak.
Yeah, I've always liked them in Type 2. Like in Type 1, they just felt like you didn't get quite as much. Like they just took up more space and needed a little more support than what we were seeing with like Herods and that kind of stuff. So I think that's maybe why they fell out of favor a little bit. But, maybe as people play a little more like balanced strategies, then they'll be coming back.
All right. Well, that brings us to Redemption with Jayden. And who better to tell us about what you put out?
There's probably somebody better because
but what was it, like almost 5 months overdue? That's my fault, guys. My fault. That's why I'm making the joke. I was supposed to get Jayden the recordings from my computer that we used to record at Mr. Classic. So I'll take the blame that you just now got these videos when you reminded me. I even to the last minute, I was almost reluctant or refusing to give you the videos. Like, yeah, as soon as I get to my computer, I'll send them over. The next day at 8 p.m., you're like, hey, did you send those videos by chance, or can you? I was like, yeah, I guess so. So the videos that did not want to be released, you finally released them.
Well, because I put up my video on Thursday and was like, I'm going to be out of town next week. I don't really have anything lined up to put a video out. And then, lo and behold, the next day, or after my video is out for a few hours or whatever, Brian, must have had an opportunity to watch it, and he sent me a message on Discord and was like, "Hey, what about those Mr. Classic videos that or those games that never got released? Like, could you put those up?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I wonder, did John ever send those to me? I don't think he did. Let me look." And sure enough, I looked back and, like 2 messages that I had sent of like, "Hey, can you send those over when you get a chance or whatever?" And so I was leaving that, like, so that was Thursday. I got them from you on Friday, and I had a friend who was in town from out of town, but he had some other, like, he had another friend that he was going to go visit for a bit. So I was like, all right, well, I've got a little bit of time. I'm just going to try to chop these up really quick and put them up. So they're very, very unedited. I just kind of chopped some off the beginning and the end. And unfortunately, I didn't have time to put up like the card pop-ups or whatever. So there's no commentary and no card pop-ups or whatever.
It's raw footage.
I'm sorry for those who are not familiar with the classic cards, but you will at least be able to hear some of what the players are saying of like, "Oh, I'm going to play this card," so you can look it up. But so for those who are interested in any and all redemption content, this would be good. And for the OGs who know the classic stuff going on, but they're there. You can study them for next year's Mr. Classic if you win the side event on the Wednesday before Nationals. So you can check those out. And then I suppose I could talk about this week a little bit, because I'm also at the point where I'm not really sure what's going to be released this week, if anything. So hopefully something.
Just go ahead and drop your Nationals deck and do a full overview, and then play with the same deck. Or gamesmanship, you play with a different deck.
See, but then I would have to watch Tyler's video about it being time to commit. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. I'll figure something out. There might be a spoiler in there. We'll see.
How many decks do you think you're down to considering? I asked Jay. He called Jeremy on the way back because I went to Jeremy's and then we drove together to East Central tournament in Knoxville. And on the way back, Jay called him, and Jay said, "If I take out Honeypot, I think I'm at like 5. I'm considering." I feel like that's a big spread. So how many are you down to?
I would say probably like 3, but I couldn't tell you what they are right now.
Okay.
But after I see Jay's post-exilic thieves deck on Baboony Tim's channel, then maybe that will be something that I have to reconsider if posties are actually able to hang in there with the big boys. So,
and I did hear a little bit about what deck he played at his regional tournament, and I believe is using some of the same stuff that you would assume is in this deck. So, and I know that he mentioned that was going to get published at some point on Land of Redemption. So maybe you can scope that out.
And he did win. So just spoiler for later in the episode, I guess. But
yes, he did beat. He did win.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. But are you planning on? I guess this is a good time to let you share with people. Normally after Nationals, you take a bit of a scheduled hiatus, take a little break from videos. Are you planning on doing that this year as well?
We'll see. I might take some time to just like see, or depending on what content we get from Nationals, like I do plan to be there for live streaming and getting all that set up. But if there's anything there that I can, kind of clean up or make a little more accessible, I might put some time into doing that instead of recording regular like new stuff. I think I usually at least do like a recap video of like, here's how the events went, how my experience went, the decks I played, that kind of stuff. So I might that will probably at least come out, but yeah, I might take a little bit of a break just for a few weeks, just to until things going to start picking back up again. I don't know how soon Jay's going to be looking to do another Lackey Grand Prix or anything, but I don't know. We'll see.
I think he did mention
how I'm
that.
feeling.
I think he did mention that the online local was returning in September, so probably Lucky Grand Prix around that same time makes sense. But
yeah, that might be a good time to kind of kick things back off. I mean, I feel like most people are in the same. I could be wrong about this, but I feel like most people are in the same camp where if they go to nationals, like that's kind of the big thing, and most people kind of take a little break from redemption, just like competitive stuff. So I don't know, maybe if I do some content, then it would just be like just some fun video ideas that I've had or that are kind of on the list of things that I want to do at some point, but they're not going to be, competitive or meta relevant or whatever.
That's fair enough. All right. So the last thing that I have here on recent things to go over, besides obviously we've got the spoilers, but we'll do those in a moment, is the fact that our sponsor, which is ironic because your channel is also sponsored by the same people now. We're not at odds on our sponsorship anymore.
I know. You don't even have to mention this because I already took care of it in the video. So.
But yes, we are sponsored by Your Turn Games, Andy and Kelsey Fish over there, doing whatever they can to make life easier for us moving towards nationals, which is knocking 10% off of all singles through 7/22. And so that means that when this releases on the 17th, you still have 5 days to take advantage of this sale. And then you can even save even more on the shipping by selecting pickup at nationals, and Andy will bring them to you. And when he sets his table up, you can just walk up to him and be like, "Hey, bro." He'll be like, "Hey, bro." And then he'll hand you cards that you've already paid for. Super simple. Super simple. He'll also have a bunch of cards there that you can buy if there's a last minute card that you need and you didn't pack it. And you don't have someone close by you can borrow it from. He'll have stuff there to sell as well. But it will make life easier for him and for you if you go ahead and do it in advance so that he can have those kind of set out, earmarked, and make sure that you have the card. So you can take advantage of that, save on the card itself, save on shipping. I don't know what else you can ask for.
Some people might have to go back and re-listen to that because if you're anything like me and you were just kind of zoned out for the last minute there, just trying to imagine Andy saying, "Hey, bro," then Dude, you might have to go back and rewind. But you can do that because it's a podcast. And yeah,
I think I could get Andy to say, "Hey, bro."
I mean, I could. I'm just trying to imagine it happening naturally.
Yeah, naturally, I'm not sure. But could you imagine him, you going up to Andy and be like, "Hey, you got this card?" And he's like, "Bro, I got you. No cap, I got you." Andy with all the slang terms, just throwing them in.
I think I would have to withdraw my sponsorship. I would just be like, "Sorry, I can't do this anymore."
Yeah, I mean, you are wound a little tight. That'd be too loose for you. But yeah.
I'm just kidding, Andy.
Andy seems like the last person to use a bunch of slang terms.
Right, yeah.
From, I guess he would be toward the bottom of the people in the community you would think would be throwing around terms like that.
Right. I mean, his kids aren't quite up there yet, I don't think. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe they're using the slang terms, but I don't think so.
He has real young children, doesn't he? Like pretty young.
I don't think he's got twins, and they're. I don't even want to guess. 'Cause I know like roughly, but it's just all the kids. I don't know. They're all the same until they're like 12.
Okay, they're all the same until they're 12. All right, fair enough. So we'll get ready to move into spoilers, and we'll stop dwelling on how old Andy's kids are. Maybe he'll share in the Discord to let us all know. But hey, until
bros,
then,
my kids are the same.
And I ain't capping, bro.
The following segment contains spoilers that may or may not have been approved by the Royal Order for the Secrecy of Expansion Sets. Proceed with caution.
All right, we are under our cloak of, I guess, spoiler alert. We've let you know. And now we're going to be talking about 3 new spoilers that have come out for the new set that is releasing at National. So,
is that a trademark term there that you're the cloak of spoiler alert? Is that not?
I said I don't know what the right term is. I got to figure it out before I can try to patent it or anything. But I think one episode I said it was the cloak of spoiler anonymity, but I don't think that makes sense. for what I'm actually trying to say.
That definitely sounds a little more official, sounds a little better, but yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's exactly what I'm trying to say. I don't know. We're under the cloak like in Harry Potter where you can't see us. And now we can talk about the spoilers.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're
I don't know.
In the cone of silence. I don't know.
Yeah. Covenant with silence. But I do have these here, and I did flip the order of the first two, so we'll do the one in the middle here on the outline. You guys aren't able to hear that or see that, so it doesn't matter to you. But the first one that was spoiled was Joshua's Command. So this is a gold enhancement. It's got 2/5 on the numbers, and it says negate and discard an evil card. That's a good ability. Negate and discard an evil card, so you can play it in battle once they do something, and it targets an evil card, not just an enhancement, so it can take out a character as well. And then if used by a Joshua hero, you may take an evil card except a dominant from a deck. So you can take an evil card except a dominant. I don't know how much it impacts that it's except a dominant. I don't know if it would be broken the other way, but this is an interesting ability nonetheless to go and grab potentially. If you see that they're playing demons and they have Suicidal Swine Stampede, you can take that out. If you don't want to have to deal with them getting rid of souls, you can go and grab a Sheol. You can go and grab... There's a multitude of things that you can do to disrupt potentially their deck strategy. Take an opponent's Gates of Hell, maybe a fancy Gates of Hell. You know, it might be the winter promo at Nationals. So you might get to take a cool card. Now, you do have to give it back at the end of the game or at some point during the game, but you could hold on to it for a little bit.
Yeah.
This one seems like an interesting ability. What do you think about it, Jayden?
Yeah, I mean, immediately, like you said, the negate and discard an evil card is pretty good. It's kind of one of the more broad but basic abilities. So it works in special initiative to deal with whatever battle winner they're trying to play. It works as a battle winner itself. If you have initiative to try to just take out their evil character, you can hit their Sheol, you can hit their 3 woes and territory. So evil card player set aside is the default targeting for that now. So you've got lots of flexibility there. The second part of the ability, I haven't really figured out how I feel about that yet, because taking an evil card from a deck, take one from your opponent's deck, that seems pretty good. If you could take something that is actually useful, I don't know, it's kind of like the old school Gabriel where you can discard an enhancement from your opponent's deck. That seems reasonable. At that point it was good. Right now I don't think it's all that great, because you'd rather deal with the resources that they currently have available. But if it is something impactful like a Swine Stampede or something, then that can maybe punish you later in the game, then that could be helpful. If they are running a Sheol or something, then maybe you can make use of that. I do think that the accepted dominant, I wouldn't say it's completely necessary just for the power level that we have of some cards these days. Taking your opponent's crowd choice or their 3 woes can be significant, and you can usually play them right away to get some sort of value before your opponent has a chance to negate this. But your most other dominants that you'd be taking, you wouldn't really be getting any value playing them right away if you take their Christian Martyr or their Falling Away while you're attacking. So because it doesn't have any modifiers, I could see them not having put that exception in there, but I think that just the direction they want to go with power level and stuff of cards, that's a decent way to do it. The other thing to note with this is that it does say from a deck, so you can take an evil card from your own deck if there's something that you're wanting to get out soon. Maybe there's a dual alignment enhancement that you could use in battle, a Sheol or something that you want to get. So that would be another part of the power level, is okay, I can play Joshua's Command, take my own crowd's choice, and then do that to fetch something else. It's kind of along the lines of Amazing Faith, which is obviously a better card than this. I think that's fair to say.
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, it's not like a GOC level card, but I think that's for the best, and I think it's not like immediately like, oh yeah, I want to play this card, but in the theme, I think it might work out well. It might be a good one to include.
Yeah, I wonder if there is, since it has the accept, and it feels like when I read the card, maybe it could have a modifier like CBP something, since it does accept a dominant. So like you're not taking anything that should break their strategy or whatever, or should break the game open. I mean, it would be cool to be able to chain a crowd's choice into an Angel of the Lord, or maybe go and grab a Woes for an additional negate in case they find a way to do something.
Yeah.
With another card, obviously, if they negate this card, then you would have to put the card back if you haven't already played it.
Right.
It seems like, I don't know, maybe there's a character that makes things CBN within the Joshua theme, kind of like we got a guy from the Sons of Jacob that do it, but it's like an interesting card. It's just like you assume that 85% of the time it's going to get negated after it's played.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a solid card. I think it's a solid card. I wouldn't say it's a groundbreaking card, but I do like the idea of a broad negate and discard and being able to target a character with the new default targeting rules. You could hit a fortress and set aside, like you could also hit if they play something that is a CBN enhancement that somehow tosses your low number guy down, with Coliseum being tossing CBN enhancements or something. Then you can negate and discard that because it can target any evil card versus just targeting an enhancement or something like that. But
yeah,
I don't know.
I think two other things that I would say about it is that at a baseline, it's a pretty good draft card, so that's kind of nice. It has the added benefit as if it's used by a Joshua hero, but it doesn't have to be in order to kind of get the core value that you're looking for, that negate and discard, just making it a battle winner and a negate. So good flexibility for draft there. And I think it also hints a little bit at the theme is going to be there, or like, you're taking a card from a deck, so you're taking a card from your opponent. We're maybe kind of getting some similar, thieves have been the theme that takes stuff from your opponent. But, we kind of have seen that a little bit with Joshua and with Caleb in recent or previous sets of where Joshua can take a site from your opponent, Caleb can take a city. And so we might kind of get a little bit of insight into what the Joshua theme could be doing. So maybe like a Joshua Thieves deck in the future would be kind of cool, just trying to play all of your opponent's stuff. And so I think that's another thing that we could take from the spoiler.
Pairing the Joshua theme with the Thieves theme, just to never let your opponent play their cards and you play them all for them. Right. Great. The next card that was spoiled was Slaves to Eglon, and this one was spoiled by Daniel the Creator, and this one is a gray enhancement, 3/3 on the numbers, and the ability, which obviously already a gray card that has capture all heroes in battle. I mean, I feel like there's a guy maybe that was in the Southeast defense that you might want to play with this card. But capture all heroes in battle to a player. Cannot be negated if used by a Moabite and more than one hero is in battle. So one thing I want to point out is both of these cards are, I feel like they're signaling kind of the new thinking of the Elder team. Maybe, I don't know if Tyler's spearheading this or if they together have made this decision to kind of work unity in for the secondary benefit of cards. Or not unity, but like a requirement of you got to be using this specific kind of character or whatnot, have this condition met to get the additional benefit. Like Joshua's command, negate and discard an evil card. Anybody can do that. But then if used by a Joshua hero, you get to take an evil card. This is capture all heroes in battle to a player. Great ability. Simple. And then it gets really strong because it gains cannot be negated if used by a Moabite and then more than one hero is in battle. So it's kind of like a scattered type ability, but it's mono brigade for gray, but it only gains the CBN if a Moabite is, if used by a Moabite. So they've got to be in battle and using the enhancement. But I mean, it's a fairly strong ability, and assuming that we get something like some additional pieces for Moabites that make you want to play that theme. I feel like they have some stuff, but it's kind of like Edomites as well. There was some stuff came out in LOC, and you have some pieces, but then it's not a complete like playable and meta relevant theme. And maybe this bridges the gap for that getting some stuff out of this new set, and this is a cool little piece to throw in. So you can take, instead of playing Scattered that has 4 brigades on it and you're worried about Matthew, now you can just play 1 if you're in that theme. What's your takeaway on this one?
Yep. I mean, I think you kind of summed it up pretty well. Pretty good ability, just on the face, works well with resin. If you're just doing like a capture theme defense, or like you're just in like gray good stuff, both resin and Naaman have another mass removal effect, I guess, that they can use. And then I think if you're in Moabites, this is like an auto include if you're in that theme, just because there's a lot of banding and add to battle stuff going on, to where that CBN option will, or a condition, I guess, will be met more often than not. I think if you're, depending on how the new themes shake out and what gets there, but I mean, we're seeing a lot of banding and stuff nowadays.
Now, one other thing about this spoiler, and I don't want it to go unnoticed or untalked about, because I think it was a fantastic way to spoil this card, but Daniel, the creator, spoiled it, and then he showed it in different layouts, like where he did the Redemption Reimagined project. And so there was different versions of this card available. Did you get a chance to check those out?
I have not yet. Yeah, I saw a little bit about it on Discord, but haven't taken the time to check it all out yet. Okay,
well, that's fair enough. But I would just like to say that I forget what it was called, but he had the classic scrolls version of it with the text over the picture, which some people said they really liked. I can't say that I'm a big fan, because I don't like the text over the picture, no matter how clean you make it look. The one that I really liked was the Antiquity style. Antiquity style has a lot of elements from, I guess, the ancient world to make it look kind of old school like that. It also kind of has a scroll type feel to the bottom where the information is. So it's not like a direct reminder of the old school style, because the scroll is very different. But I really like the way that this one's laid out and gives the information. Some people did not like that the numbers were lower, so I think the numbers do need to be tied in some way to the skull icon in the top, just to maintain the visibility and understanding that those are the numbers. But I really liked the way that this was laid out, and I thought it focused more on clean picture artwork, but then also making the card look like it fit almost like the time period of the artwork, which was kind of cool. And obviously he's got like 2 other versions, things that we've seen before, like the Japanese style and then his reimagined style.
But yeah, these are pretty cool.
They are very cool. And I think, I know that they said a while back when Babooni Tim spoiled his card, maybe we should just let him spoil all the cards. I'd be okay with Daniel and Tim spoiling the cards.
Yeah,
that's fine.
That'd probably be good. I feel like the pressure's on now for me to do something a little more in depth than just sneaking it into a deck or something.
Yeah, that's old and tired now. You gotta like design it in 5 different card faces.
I'll see what I can do.
And I do know that Daniel posted recently, someone asked about making the cards or something, and he said that the Redemption Card Creator tool that he's working on was coming soon. Be interesting to see once that comes out. It'd be really cool if he was able to include these different frames, so you could just plug in the information and see it in the different frames. That'd be cool. I'm not trying to create more work for you, Daniel, if you're not doing that already. I'm just saying it would be cool.
If he was.
Yeah. Now he's probably going to do it and be like, yeah, it was already my idea. I was already doing that.
Way ahead of you.
Yeah, way ahead. But I do really like the way that he did that and spoiled that. And that brings us to the last card. And since I shared both of these, I'll let you share this one. This one feels a little bit more tame in its ability, but I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, this one is a lot. It doesn't have quite the same feel of like, all right, I can play this and it'll be good, but then it's even better if I'm in this theme. It's like you're pretty much only playing it if you're in the theme. So this is House of Samuel. It is a good fortress, also a rare. The other 2 were commons, so it's something to notice, I guess, that does have a rarity marked on there. The special ability is, if put in play, look at the top 7 cards of deck, take up to 1 green card. If an opponent harms your green prophet, shuffle up to 1 evil card in a territory. So it's nice that you get the immediate benefit, like it kind of replaces itself when you put it in play. Of course, you have to have a high enough density of green cards in your deck in order to make that more likely, because there is definitely the opportunity to whiff, but I think it does, like it does go in a green offense for that reason, just because there is some long-term value that you can get from it. I think ways to get fortresses out or back or whatever. Like I think if there was a consistent way to like bounce this or something to reactivate that if put in play ability, then you get good value from it. But I think it's so played even just in a Prophets green offense, which we're not seeing a whole lot of now, but kind of shows something, or what we might be expecting from the set here. And then the secondary ability, if an opponent harms your green prophet, shuffle up to 1 evil card in a territory, which I think it's okay, because like harm is fairly broad. Like a lot of things can constitute harm that don't necessarily mean that you're losing the battle, but that's kind of the thing that gives me a little bit of pause. It's like, if the opponent's harming my green prophet, it probably means that I'm losing the battle, and so getting that benefit doesn't feel quite as strong. It's more of like a long game kind of ability, which isn't really what we're what you want to be looking for in the current meta. Like in not necessarily trying to play the long game in most decks. I don't know. The one interesting tidbit about this card, though, is that as a playtester, I was able to kind of see an earlier iteration which said, if your green prophet is harmed, shuffle up to 1 evil card in a territory, and so that would include your own harm too. So you could play your hypocrisy or something and bounce 4 of your green prophets, and then shuffle their
Why'd
whole
they have to
defense.
change that?
That would have made it definitely a more playable there, but I think it's still playable, but it doesn't excite me like a whole lot right away.
It's not 12 Jordan Stones though. It's better than that.
Yeah.
So as a basis, it does have a little bit more headroom there.
Right.
Now, I assume, and I'm still working on my Redemption PhD, but if an opponent harms your green prophet, if they do more than 1 at one time, this doesn't look like it's an ability that stacks or anything. So it means that if they play Scattered against your multiple prophet band, you would shuffle just 1 card, right?
I believe
or would it trigger for multiple?
Trigger multiple times.
Okay, now that makes it a little bit better in my head than I thought. So if they scatter my band, I can hit stuff in their territory. Right. It would be nice if you could shuffle up to 1 evil card, and maybe that's too broad to say in play, but it'd be nice if they got rid of my guy. This would let me hit their guy in battle. I mean, but that would probably be too strong, because if you have multiple heroes and they come out with a lone guy and harm 1 guy,
right,
you're putting them in SI from a fortress. So, I mean, I just, it feels like the long-term value. I mean, and maybe that's enough value once you see the theme play out and you put pieces together. Oh, as soon as you do this, I can just keep picking off evil cards in your territory. But I don't know. We're in a meta right now that's defined by how quickly you can get to resources, how quickly you can set up, and how fast those resources, or how quickly those resources help you get to your win condition. And this is one that's kind of sitting there, and if something doesn't go my way, then I can reactionary do something. And it's hard to make your mind think about this card being really good, or at least higher on the scale of good cards, when you think about what the gameplay is like today. So I guess we'll have to see the theme and see how it plays out with other, maybe they're able to, kind of like Wilderness can play that mid-range or later game, like that attrition war pretty well. Maybe Prophets will be able to do that, and then obviously you get more value, the more turns you can pace out the game.
Yeah, so I think maybe a few other notes on this to kind of come to its defense at least a little bit. So it is up to
Hey, you don't have to defend it too much. I said it's not 12 Jordan Stones, so I gave it that's giving it props.
I just, just to point out a few other things in case anybody has any doubts, But one green card is somewhat broad, so that can target sites. So ends of the earth, Egypt, Patmos, I guess, is also green. Not that you're probably going to be playing this in the same deck.
Another way to Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you're playing Peter, you're playing John, you could have you could have enough green cards in here.
There you go. You just broke this card.
How can I use this in a GOC good stuff deck? No. So I think that gives it some additional value as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a straight green deck. Like you could just have some green splashed in there, but have enough, I guess, to make it worthwhile. Gabriel, I guess a lot of people are playing Virgin Birth. Not that you necessarily want to take that, but
fishing rod for delivered to try to get it out quicker. So since it replaces itself, it could be acceleration if you can get to delivered, or another green card that helps you accelerate your first turn.
Right. Yep. There's also some value in just having the knowledge of what your top 7 cards are, because once you look at them, you put them right back in the same order. So it's like, all right, do I want to do my search first, or do I want to do my draw first? And then I think the part where like the harm comes into play, like you're not always going to be losing a battle when your opponent's harming your green prophet. It might be like a Jonah or a Moses or something in territory that your opponent is trying to deal with. Maybe they want to bounce it with an artifact or something like that. So it gives you a little bit of not necessarily protection, but just kind of, the ability to react or kind of punish them for messing with your stuff. So I think that's going to make it worthwhile in a Prophets deck for sure, especially if you have some of those territory class effects that you want to keep around.
That is interesting that you mentioned Jonah, because if you take Jonah, obviously green, you can play it with this card. So that gives you 2 ways to shuffle, depending on what the opponent does. You can also play, there's an artifact or a curse. I forget which one it is offhand. Is it Lacking Prophecy? That if they do something, you can shuffle. It's basically like Jonah. No,
Wasting Disease.
Wasting Disease, yes. Yeah. So you could layer in a Prophets deck, you could layer 3 ways to shuffle things in their territory based on what they do, to where like any move they make almost, I mean, I guess except for, I guess that still allows them to freely draw. I think Jonah and both Wasting Disease is searches and this is harm. So they could still draw, but anything else they do, potentially, you could have a way to shuffle things.
Yeah, and green has historically had like shuffle is kind of one of their like go-to.
Yeah, like Two Bears does that.
Yeah, Two Bears, Plague of Frogs, old school Plague of Frogs, and even Habakkuk Stands Watch. That's an old school one.
That's before my time, but I do know it wasn't that a foil card?
It was, yeah.
Because I remember I opened it in the back of a pack and I was like, oh, cool, they got foil cards. And then I realized it wasn't a very good card at the current time.
Yeah. And then one last thing. It is a territory, so you can shuffle an evil card in your territory, which might include an evil 3 woes that you want to reset to be able to play it again in battle, or play it as good or something like that. So
might be an orange token that someone's going to choose the blocker on.
Right. Yeah. Yep. If they put a possessing spirit or whatever on your hero, then
definitely think there's some use cases for it, and it is interesting when you talk about the fact that it replaces itself to get instant value, and then it just sits there. So theoretically, as long as you are playing a deck that has enough targets for it to hit something, I do want to say that shuffling an evil card in a territory is, I mean, it's good, but the way that decks are now, a lot of people are playing, unless they're playing like Matthew Reckless Speed, to where they draw a bunch of stuff and then they have to put their evil characters down to get them out of hand to get down to 8 at the end of a turn. A lot of people are keeping evil characters in their hand, and usually you don't see a lot of evil characters sitting in territory or evil cards in territory right now, because everybody's using like Bethlehem's Table, Herod's Temple. They're using good fortresses a lot. And you might see a Gates of Hell every now and then or a Sheol, but it's not as common. So
Yeah.
I do think the current game kind of also limits the targets for this a little bit. So it's I guess you have to determine like what you're expecting to see as well when you play this card.
Yeah, you might want to pair it with something like 20 shekels to get their evil characters in territory. But also, to some degree, prophets want to have their opponent's evil characters in territory, so you have options to choose with Elijah or something like that. But yeah, definitely some flexibility there. There was one other thing that came into my head while you were talking, but now it is gone.
Man, you're getting
Forever.
old. That's the sign of getting old.
But yeah, it could be. I don't know.
That and a shortened bladder.
That one I haven't had as much of an issue with yet. So
I've been drinking a lot of water lately, so I do have that issue. So I'm admitting that I'm getting old. So now you just have to admit it too. That you're getting forgetful. You're forgetting things. You forgot to release a video, so then you had to use those old videos.
Hey, I was intending not to release one.
I'm just joshing you, like Joshua. You get it? Reference.
Nice, very nice. What was it? It felt like a good little tidbit too.
House of Samuel fishing for delivered acceleration, top 7, green card, Elijah choosing, evil shuffle, layering shuffle cards, 2 bears. None of that's bringing it to you?
Nothing.
I think Agur's job is safe at this point.
I'm just playing the part to make sure that happens. No, I could have just interrupted you, and I didn't do that at least. So I don't know. Maybe I should have. No.
Interrupt the battle. Insert your thought.
Yep. That was gonna. One of my brother's name is Jordan, and so the card Jordan interrupted. That was kind of one of the jokes.
Nice little inside joke there. Nice. Yeah. Well, I guess if you can't think of that, then maybe at National, someone will pop open a pack and they'll have House of Samuel and they'll be like, oh, I don't know if this card is good or not. And then that thought will hit you and you'll just tell them.
Yep.
And then that'll
have it there. I'll
maybe
save it
just come full circle
for my video this week. That'll be what my video is. Just
all the reasons that House of Samuel is better than what John said on the podcast. All right.
This card's amazing.
I guess we'll take the opportunity here now that we have gotten to the end of our talking and you've forgotten your point to move right along to tournament results. Take it away if you want.
All right. I figured it out while John was emptying his old man bladder.
Hey, well, now you're breaking the fourth wall. We hadn't done that yet, but that is a classic on the podcast. I took a bathroom break. Okay, hate me for it.
I was thinking about ways that you could recycle or like use the ability multiple times, and if you have, I couldn't think of a good way to do it. But if there's a way to either easily or repeatably reserve or discard even your own House of Samuel, then you could get the ability when you attack with Haggai and either play it from your reserve or play it from your discard pile if you have a Persian in play. So that could be
that's
a way
interesting
to get some more use out of the ability there. But I can't think of anything where it's like reserve one of your own good cards in territory for some effect. Or
I remember the first time you put a post-exilic list together and you had Haggai in it, and I didn't realize, like, I hadn't put together that, hey, he fits with this theme.
Yeah.
And whatever. And I remember thinking, oh, that's cool. Finally, like, that's a theme that makes a card playable that wasn't really necessarily playable before or seeing a lot of play before. And now you're trying to drum up a way to get him into the new Green Prophet stuff. So, Jeshua, does he have a little competition for your favorite post-exilic guy now?
I wouldn't go that far, but Jeshua can play this guy from deck or reserve, so can play House of Samuel from deck or reserve.
You made your player created card if you have 4 or more fortresses.
Right.
So, maybe is that your play style? You just like anything that generates fortresses into play?
I like posties. What can I say? They build stuff.
So I guess we'll jump right into the tournament results here. And we do have a solid amount of results with those 3 regional tournaments. So let's see where everybody finished.
Let's turn our attention to the most recent tournament results and see where players have stacked up since our last episode.
All right, so we do have 3 regional tournaments. Obviously, we had the Midwest, we had East Central, and then we also had North Central region. And I think it's interesting, and I don't know if everyone has paid attention, but like I started putting on the regions for players after we had that discussion on the Discord about like which region or whatever, people considering or, like throwing their hat in the ring of which region is the toughest or strongest or whatever. You guys said that your region was the strongest. You guys from North Central Regional. And so you guys had your our North Central region, and then you had your regional tournament. You weren't there, but there was still some solid competition with Zach Gilball there. John Early was there, Justin Alstad, and that's just, the top end of the player scale there. But we do have the results here, and since this is your native region, I figure what better thing than to just let you go ahead and give us these results.
I'll have the best odds of being able to pronounce the names correctly. Is that what you're saying?
There you go.
Well, I also feel like I should point out in the kind of best region discussion, as long as you brought that up. I don't know as a fact, but I think the North Central Regionals attendance was, it was definitely better than both Midwest and East Central. And was it better than them combined? I'm not exactly sure what the
Don't go there, because then we're going to have to bring up Kentucky State. And we'll have to bring up Kentucky State if you go there.
Yeah. I think East Central would have been a lot bigger if it was earlier in the year, so like a lot of Brian's guys would have been able to go. But
yeah, I also think that like we got betrayed by Tyler deciding to get engaged here at the end, but then he traveled to the Pacific Northwest to go to their tournament, but didn't come to a single tournament in our own region this year.
Yeah.
Well, I take that back. He was at Kentucky State, but he didn't come to Alabama State, Tennessee State, Southeast Regional, or East Central Regional.
So
like, what are you doing, man? You're falling apart.
Before he got engaged, yeah.
I mean,
South Central was before he got engaged, but
priorities, man. Like
some baby shower or something he had to go to.
Whoa! Now you're talking. He just got engaged. You're talking about baby showers.
Not his.
That's the cart before the horse, guys.
No. I don't know. It was something like that. I don't know. Maybe it was because he was getting engaged soon that he wanted to, that he agreed to go to this instead of to the tournament. Anyways, North Central Regionals. I guess we'll go in order of how they're presented here, starting out with the closed categories, the limited format. So sealed, we had Seth Moreland taking first place. And I remember Justin was actually texting me a little bit, and how things were going. This was Friday night before I was leaving, and he was saying Justin and Zach were kind of duking it out, and then Seth beat Zach, and that was enough to actually make him jump both Justin and Zach. So Justin took second place, and Zach Gilbot took third in sealed. So even in sealed deck, they had some pretty good competition going on there. Booster draft, we had Sean Murphy taking first place, which is cool to see. He's one of the younger players, but he's probably one of the youngest, more current Type 2 players. He usually will play at the when we would do the bigger Minnesota tournaments and stuff that they would come up for. He would often bring a Type 2 deck, which is cool. And then Mitch Stewart taking second place, and then in third place there's a tie between Aiden Spurgetis. I probably pronounced that wrong. Aiden's been out of the game for a little while. After you talked to me. I know.
After you talked about me.
Aiden hasn't played for a while. I haven't seen him in a good while, but I haven't been at tournaments. But it was a tie with him and Kai Murphy, his dad. So cool that there were a lot of the family was in there, all placing, and then Mitch kind of sneaking in there with second place. Then in Type 1, one of the more significant events, I guess, that people are going to be looking at, and we'll be looking at for power rankings, that kind of stuff. In first place, we got Zach Gilbaugh, and then second is Jayden Alstad, and third was Kai Murphy. And this is, like John mentioned, pretty good field that they had going at North Central Regionals here. So definitely some impactful placings. And then in Type 2, Jayden Alstad in first place, John Early in second place. I'm not really sure how they convinced him to play Type 2, but I don't know. Maybe it was just the three. I think it was maybe just the three of them that were playing or something like that. But they were, must have handed John a Type 2 deck and let him loose. But and then Zach Gilbaugh in third place there. And then in teams, we got John Early once again teaming up with Gabe Isbell, a classic teams combination, if I do say so. They go back to they won, I want to say, at least twice at nationals. Maybe I should just say at least once. But they're definitely a team of the past coming back together. And then Kai and Sean Murphy taking second place in teams. Looks like there were only two teams playing there.
That's pretty cool to see John Early and Gabe Isbell listed on the leaderboard there. I do think that they won multiple times, but again, I'm no longer sponsored by Covenant Games, so I don't know for sure. But if you want to go to that website, you can check out the history and see. But it is interesting that you mentioned, I guess, the competition, and like it was probably better here than at the. I'll just say that was a good competition here. Let's just leave it at that. But I know that Gabe mentioned that Zach beat each other person in the top 4 on his way to winning. So it's not like. And he went undefeated or whatever. So not only did he do that, but he had, I don't know, you could say a tough schedule is kind of the wording, but, playing the top players, the players that finished in the top there on his way to winning that. So by all accounts, that was well-deserved. And he shared his deck list and things afterwards and talked about maybe some changes or whatever. But if you want to see that deck list, I know that it was posted on Discord. Kind of an interesting thing that he was running Pagan Sailors in order to get an artifact, activate like stocks, I think, to get the neutral battle winner, but not worried about Matthew seeing Pagan Sailors. It's kind of...
There's been some debate about that recently.
Since that didn't bite him in the butt in this tournament, hey, maybe we've been a little bit too worried about multi-brigade cards in Matthew.
Yep.
It'd be interesting to see what his deck would hit on the Babooni Tim tool to see what Matthew would draw against it. But
I'm sure Tim's already run the numbers.
Yeah. He's crunching the numbers. But at the Midwest Regionals, we'll start. Oh, and you mentioned the order with the reason that I do list them in this order is that's the order on the results page that you turn in to Rob. So I just followed that along. But anyway, Midwest Regionals sealed was Alex Oliar coming in first. Jay Chambers coming in second, and Ron Sias coming in third.
Yeah, Ron.
And then in booster, Ron said, "Forget third, homie. I'm taking first." So Ron Sias won booster. Alex Oliar came in second, and then Jay Chambers came in third. In Type 1, Jay Chambers came in first. Chris Hill came in second. Ron Sias came in third. So Ron Sias in the first 3 categories made sure his name was in there. Type 2 was Chris Hill, then Matt Sinclair, and Caden LaFountain. In teams, Chris Hill and Matt Sinclair teamed up and came in first. Second was Ron Sias with Alex Oliar, and then Jay Chambers and Caden LaFountain came in third. So nice, healthy teams competition. They got the full 3 teams up there.
Yeah, they did.
So that is what we have for the Midwest Regionals. Smaller turnout, so it's really hard to judge based on numbers and things because I know a lot of people have things going on and they can't travel. There was a lot of people saying, "Hey, I wish I could be there," but then also you can only beat the people that show up to play. So like Jay winning that Type 1, and we talk about power rankings and the implications, but like I don't necessarily know the best way. Whatever, we'll feel our way through it when we do the power rankings here in a little bit, but I feel like you can't. You'd like to see stronger competition at some tournaments, but you can't also punish people because they showed up willing to play and, who showed up to play against them. But
yeah, that's not to say that the people from the, that did show up were, slouches by any means. There were still some good names there. And I saw the picture of, that I think Chris posted on their tournaments page. And, you can see some decks there. They're not just playing like, contender decks or whatever. Like, it's still players that have a lot of experience, and then also Alex Oliar, who has a lot of past experience in coming back and bringing that back to the field. So,
all right, for East Central Regionals again, we did this for Tennessee State a couple of weeks back, but I didn't get the results from Chris. He didn't get them to me, or I asked late. So I'm going from memory here, and also Chris's memory. So sealed, we do know that Booster Jones won that thing. Like, obviously, Booster Jones winning that. And then Philip
Sealed
Anderson
Jones
placed either second or third. And I'm sorry to whoever came in the other position of second or third in sealed. I don't know. I don't remember who you are. So we know Philip Anderson at least placed second or third, and Booster Jones won sealed. In Booster, Philip Anderson won this, and Stephen Coates came in second, and Tehran Garcha came in third. Type 1, Brian Jones won that. Mr. Classic himself, finishing his tournament season on a solid note there. And then Jeremy and myself tied for second, which
how did that happen?
Guess, according to Chris, if there's a tie for second, there's no third, and then second, the two people that tie split the points and prizes for second and third. But Jeremy and I both had, we only played 4 rounds, and we both went 3 and 1. He had a timeout win and a timeout loss, and I had 3 full wins and 1 full loss. So we ended up with the exact same score and victory points, so 9 points and +8 soul differential. And we didn't play head-to-head. So
Wow.
Neither of the two tiebreakers mattered. And according to Chris, that if those don't settle a tie, then it just ends in a tie. I would have much rather gotten to play Jeremy, like if we had another round, because he was playing Honeypot at this particular tournament and doing pretty well with it. And I have not actually played against Honeypot ever. So it would have been nice to actually see what Honeypot is doing and see if I could beat it, but didn't get that opportunity. So
Sure.
that's how type 1 went. So, I mean, we had Brian was undefeated, and then we had 3-1 for me and Jeremy. So solid records at the top. In type 2, Chris Fashman won, Jeremy Chambers second, and Luke Anderson came in third. And then in teams.
All right, so we're also going to have to pause here real quick.
Okay.
Because, like, I know Jeremy's already got the type 2 regional points, so I don't know, is he just trying out something, a little, not to knock Chris or anything. Chris is a good player, and he likes type 2, and he's got good stuff. But I'm just curious how that game went down,
Maybe it's because he knew his deck inside and out. But yes, I do believe there was a little bit of lack of effort given because he already had the regional points from our regional. And I think that the same thing actually happened with Booster Jones. Notice that he didn't finish in the top of Booster. It's because he didn't play the category. Instead of playing the category, he was getting some extra type 1 games in the night before the category. So if you already got the points, you don't have to necessarily shoot for it. But then in teams, don't bash us too hard, but Sean Severs and Brandon
I'm
Wade.
going to stop here too.
Well, I will go ahead and say we already had our points. Somebody might have sat down at the table with a 100-card deck. So 100-card deck in teams, that was on the table. I'm just going to say that.
Okay.
So
all
Sean
right.
and Brandon got first there. Me and Jeremy got second.
See, but I feel like Sean and Brandon they're a team that you might actually want to worry about, though. Like if they take first at nationals, then you guys are not going to catch up to them in points.
I mean, we already have state and regional points as well. So if we win at nationals, nobody's going to catch up to us. I mean, you put it all on the line of nationals, I guess. But I do think this tournament season without intro prep for teams has made the gameplay a little bit more important, because a lot of times you can theory craft your deck and just, okay, this is what I know that teams plays out like, and you can just put decks together and then go and play the game. And without that, it's a little bit more random because you don't get that consistency turn one or intro prep and then into your turns. So really you're focusing on turn one rescue and block potential versus turn one, let me set up some counters for my opponent to have to, step over. That's kind of changed it up, but it also doesn't help when every tournament you play a different team's deck, which is what we've been doing all tournament season. It's like, scratch this, we'll build an entire new one. So
it's time to commit, man.
I think yes, it's time to commit, but I think at nationals there's going to be a lot of like random team stuff because nobody, like I was telling Brian, because Brian was talking about teams a little bit. It's like you don't get enough gameplay in throughout the tournament season because most tournaments you're playing like 1-2 games because there's not a ton of teams at these tournaments or whatever. You might, have a tournament where you play 3 rounds, but you don't get a lot of games in with your deck. And then the caliber of player that plays teams, I feel like, is kind of all across the board at localized things. And then you have the top teams at nationals. Be interesting to see how that plays out with no intro prep at nationals when you have some top players there. Like I heard that you were going to be teaming up with Rob Smith. Is there any truth to that?
I don't know who you would have heard that from. It's possible. We've talked about it, but it kind of depends on whether or not Justin and I are gonna team up or not. That's Rob knows that's the
fortress comes first.
Yeah, right. I mean that's kind of our default or go-to, but that's something that we've talked about just because it sounds like Dave is unfortunately not going to be able to make it because of work and stuff. So it's a possibility. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a likelihood, but there could be some truth to that.
There's always a bit of truth to every rumor. It just depends on if that stays the truth or whatever. If it changes,
right.
But it will be interesting. Like I might have a false sense of confidence. I am undefeated against the Guardian and the Jailer together, being the Fortress and team. So I don't know. I would like to see, like, it'd be really cool if we could see, since Gabe and John Early paired up, if they would play. But I know that's not going to happen at nationals. But it would be cool to see some of the stalwart teams from back in the day. And I feel like you and Justin are kind of like one of those.
Yeah. It's been a few years since we played at nationals, but
here we are harping on teams really hard here in the middle of the category. But I do think intro prep this season has made teams a lot more accessible for other players and more fun in the actual gameplay. I think that's a benefit of them looking at potentially changing the rules and, making the decision to test that out this season. And that brings us to the unofficial tournaments, and we've got the Zoom Discord Invitational Series 20, and I listed these as unofficial placings, but I did get confirmation that this is where the finishes are, because the results had been put in, but they hadn't been tallied up and officially listed in the server for this tournament. But Jay Chambers actually beat Babooni Tim in the last round, not to spoil the result of the video from him that we mentioned earlier, but even though he did that, Babooni Tim still had a higher soul differential, so he gets first place. So he got 9 victory points and was +9. Jay Chambers was 9 victory points and +7 soul differential. And then the Guardian was 9 points +4 soul differential. So all of these guys had the same score, and it just came down to soul differential. So it is Babooni Tim, Flooded Red, and the Guardian.
So wait, did they all play each other?
I have no idea. I didn't. I am a poor host because I did not.
Oh, okay.
You're asking me questions I haven't done the research for.
Well, it's just because it would come to head, but then they would have to have played all the other players or something like that. Yeah.
I thought
This is
soul
probably
differential
right.
went before head-to-head. I don't know.
No, head-to-head would go first as long as they've played all the other players that were tied for the points.
It's unofficial. That's all I know. But Rob M did say that I had the list
figure it
correct.
out for the we'll figure it out for the power rankings.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. And then Lackey Grand Prix 16. So we got the final four: Flooded Red, I Am Bread, Baboony Tim, and the Guardian, which is also Jay Chambers, Jeremy Chambers, Tim Estes, and then Justin Alstad.
Sounded like you were listing the members of a band or something before, like Flooded Red, I Am Bread, Baboony Tim, and the Guardian. Like, it's a long band name, but I don't know.
Okay, what kind of music would those four members play? Like country
boy.
jazz?
I mean, I feel like it's just got to be like a boy band, like just.
I don't know. I could see.
One Direction.
I could see Justin being like, who is it? Kevin Malone from The Office playing in Scranton City. He's the drummer, but also the singer. He's got the hat on.
Yeah, but he'd be playing like
see
he would probably be singing like country or something. That's his go-to for like karaoke and whatnot, like
Okay.
something Josh Turner or like Garth
Now we're going to
Brooks.
have to request that you get us some video of him doing karaoke. we need to see some footage of him doing karaoke. You've opened the bag. Pandora's box has been
Yeah,
opened.
one of the nights at Nationals, side event.
Okay, so I need to rent a karaoke machine and bring to Nationals.
Side event at Nationals, one of the nights at the Airbnb.
Yes, we're doing it. But the Lackey Grand Prix top four, we've already got the first round of that. So we're cut down to two. Jeremy beat Jay, and then Tim beat Justin. So we end up with I Am Bread versus Baboony Tim. And I believe Jeremy told me on the car ride when he was talking about this matchup coming up, I don't believe that they have ever played each other. So this will be the first time that
Really? Wow.
Jeremy and Tim are playing. So that will be interesting. And that'll obviously be coming up later this week. When this podcast comes out in 3 days on Wednesday, this game might have already happened. But right now we don't have the results for that. And that is what the finals are.
Yeah, and odds are it'll be recorded and put on Tim's channel or maybe live stream somewhere or something. So
Yeah, so there definitely should be some footage of it coming out at some point. So just be on the lookout for that. But that is the tournament results. And those are the last things that we have right now. Obviously, we don't have this final between Tim and Jeremy to consider, but we have all of the other things to consider before we go through and pick our power rankings. And I would like to say ranking players is a tough business to be in, especially when players want to be ranked higher. So if you have any problems with it this week, he's helped us behind the scenes with it a little bit, but now Jayden is definitely helping us rank the power rankings this week. So if you have any complaints, send them to the door of Jayden Alstad, okay?
I mean, you can just mention my name in the comments on the podcast or whatever, wherever you're listening or whatever,
If you want to blame somebody, don't blame me. That's all I'm saying. But we'll get you right over and we'll give you the updated power rankings.
And now, it's time to find out where the hottest players in the game stack up in this week's Power Rankings. This is the top 10 redemption players right now, according to us.
That's right. It's according to us, and the us this week is Jayden and myself. So if you don't like the rankings this week, we'll blame Jayden. So I think that's a fair compromise.
Do what you want.
All right, so let's get started here.
10.
At number 10, for the first time ever on the power rankings, maybe the only time ever, who knows, we're going to take the opportunity to spotlight a man who came in several different categories, placings at the Midwest Regional. And this is a stalwart of the game, someone from way back when. And he's also one of the hosts for Nationals this year. This is Mr. Ron Sias. So congratulations, Ron, on finding your way into the top 10.
You should have just said Jay Chambers and then like, no, just kidding, it's wrong. one of the hosts of nationals. Yeah.
People probably were trying to figure out which one I was talking about.
Well, congratulations, Ron. Yeah, cool to see him not only playing but placing in one of these bigger tournaments. So
too bad we couldn't squeeze Bill in here as well. So we'd have Bill and Ron.
He does have a couple of placings in bigger tournaments. Yeah.
Yeah, and there is always the opportunity in the future to try to do that. But
yep.
Moving on.
9.
Number 9 is someone who we saw multiple placings from in the recent tournaments, and someone who's been to a good handful of the tournaments. I can't remember what he said the other day, but he was like, he'd been to like 5 different state tournaments or something like that, making appearances. He went out to Michigan and went down to Iowa. He was at Minnesota, went over to Wisconsin, and I don't know what the other one was. But anyway, number 9 is Mr. Red Dragon Thorn, John Early. Definitely taking a lot of second place titles at some of these tournaments. That's kind of his MO.
He took second place in Type 2 at the North Central Regionals.
That's true. Yeah.
And it took Gabe teaming up with him for him to finally get over the hump and get a win. So thankfully Gabe stepped up to the plate and helped him get a win.
I suppose you know a little bit about that, getting helped up to getting a win.
I do know a little bit about that. You could say I know a little bit about getting slingshot in there. That might be a teaser if you got a good movie reference background for our team sleeves.
Okay. All right.
So that probably went right over your head knowing you.
Yep.
But we do have some custom team sleeves that I don't know if everyone's going to like them more than Mark and Jalissa's or Mark and whoever his partner is with the cat meme. But we decided we would shoot for challenging them for best team sleeve. So
there you go. See. I mean, skins equal wins. That's what I've heard.
8.
Coming in at 8, this is someone that also has traveled to a few tournaments. Came down this way, came to our neck of the woods, as some of the country folks say. But he's also the guest host, co-host on this episode, Mr. Jayden Alstad. So you have found your way, even though you haven't done as well as some of the other top players. I mean, you've been on the power rankings for a good bit. And I know you were telling me who all should be ahead of you, but you've done well this tournament season. You've done some Type 2 wins, winning at Kentucky, and then you won booster at, what was it, Iowa State, or was that Minnesota State?
Minnesota State, yeah.
Yeah, and then won Type 2 there. So, hey, feels like you deserve to be here.
All right, well, I'll take it, I guess. Yeah.
7.
Number 7, a guy I've been floating around kind of this region of the power rankings for at least a little while now, and he's been floating around in our Minnesota play group and also has made it to a couple of the out-of-state tournaments this season, is Mr. Joe Andrighetti, and he's been always making good appearances at our tournaments, and took first at Minnesota State recently, and has been pretty much a permanent feature of our Lackey Grand Prix top cuts, and then usually loses in the first round, but
hey.
But still,
at least he gets there.
Yeah, you got to get there.
He's been on the power rankings pretty much. There's at least been 2 times I can remember where I was like, okay, Joe's falling off, and then he'd have some win. So instead of him at like 9 or 10 and then falling off, he would push his way back up a little bit. So he's been on these power rankings all season, it seems like, but he's also been piloting kind of the strategy of Disciples and throwing in Nazareth and finding ways to play that. So when you think Nazareth and Disciples, I feel like Joe's the first name you think of. So it's kind of cool that he not only has done really well this season, but everybody knows what he's playing and he's still doing well with it.
Yeah, he's been switching it up a little bit at the different tournaments that he's been going to. I know he's been trying out a couple different defenses and a couple different lost soul packages and stuff, but he's still kind of keeping that core, and it seems to be working out well for him.
Well deserved here.
6.
At number 6, this is going to, I might get a little flack for this from him, but it gives him something to shoot for and strive for. But we've got Mr. Flooded Red, Rooted Red, whatever red, depending on the server he's on. But we've got Jay Chambers here. Jay did win Type 1 at his regional tournament, but there was low attendance, so I did take that into account. But also, I feel like Jay needs a little bit of extra motivation going into nationals. Like if we had him toward the top, he might get full of himself and not do well. Like last year, he expected to do well, and then for whatever reason didn't. We just want to give him extra motivation to make sure he does well at nationals. So that's why we've got you here.
Exactly.
5.
Number 5 is another stalwart of the power rankings in the last few months, and someone who's been putting out a lot of content and also putting out a lot of wins with a deck that he's become very competent with and familiar with, and I'm sure we'll be seeing something pretty similar to that in his Nationals debut, I guess. I think this was his first Nationals, what I remember him saying. Definitely in the last, however many years. But this is Mr. Baboony Tim Estes, number 5.
4.
At number 4, we've got the other half. So on this podcast, we've got half of the Fortress. The other half is right here, ranked number 4. We've got Jayden Alstad, who has done pretty well all tournament season. He's been kind of at that top cut level, like you mentioned with Joe getting top cut for the Lackey Grand Prix, and Justin's been doing that, but also been doing really well in the Zoom Discord tournaments, in addition to playing really well at in-person tournaments. And I know that he did pretty well in a few categories at the North Central Regionals, which had a good field, pretty loaded field, actually, considering you were not even there. And, I guess you would have raised the bar, but from what I hear, I feel like Justin would have taken you down because he needed the points, right?
Ooh, I
He
don't know.
was shooting for the points.
Could be.
But I feel like I owed it to him because he did tell me that he had beat Jay last power rankings, and I still put Jay above him. So maybe I'm throwing a little bit of a bone here, but I really do think that he's done really well, even all the way back to Mr. Classic weekend, winning that classic format Type 1 event, and then playing GoldenEye, switching it up, playing other things this tournament season, but just doing well. And it's really nice to see him back on his competitive edge.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to completely dismiss, or that I don't want to completely say though that we're each one half of the Fortress. I think John is kind of a part, like at least a half member, not by blood but by marriage. So that's he's in there too. Just gotta throw that out there, clarify that.
Okay, all right, fine. So you just wanted to have more you wanted to say that all 3 members of the Fortress is on here. Fine.
Exactly.
That
Almost
works.
a third of the power rankings. That's yeah.
All right.
3.
Speaking of the third in the power rankings, or Mr. Zach Gilbaugh is taking up our number 3 slot here with some pretty impressive performances in recent tournaments, and I believe is this Zach's first time on the power rankings?
It is. This is his debut. Probably should have been toward the 9 or 10 range last power rankings, but
Sure.
hey, he's here now.
You can't blame me for that one, but but yeah, Zach is jumping all the way up to spot number 3 with his recent performances at the various tournaments, taking down first place at North Central Regionals and a few of the other state tournaments that he has been to. He's been doing well at those. So, and you already talked about the pretty big field, or stacked field, I guess, at the North Central Regional tournament that he took down. And Gabe also mentioned that Zach not only won the tournament, but he beat all of the other top 4 or 5 players that were behind him there. So pretty impressive performance there by Zach.
Yep, absolutely. I think also, if nothing else, I'll give him credit here and put him on the power rankings for the fact that he had the he had the bravery. We'll word it that way to be politically correct and safe here, but he had the bravery to run Pagan Sailors in his deck list, even knowing Matthew was going to be in the field, which I feel like is kind of that's one of those things that's either going to work out really well for you and you're going to look like a genius, or it's going to backfire on you and you're going to be like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have played that card. So he made it work.
Right, yeah, and he was playing Pagan Sailors even without being a herdsman deck, so he was playing it alongside a Herod's defense, which a little more risky because you're not going to recover quite as well. But he did have the Crowd's Lost Soul in there, so at least has that option. I was kind of wondering about that though, because he's also running Accusers, which is is a little bit of a risky combination. Because you could risk not being able to use the sailors that you put in for that specific reason. But
yeah,
he did mention that it's possible that the sailors and stocks combination gets cut, but still he did run it. He did win with it, so something to be said about that.
Sometimes you just got to risk it for the biscuit so that you can find your way to crack into the top 10.
Yep,
and that's what he did, moving all the way up to number 3. So here we go. Two is, it feels like for the last several updates of the power rankings, these two have been neck and neck since we've started having our, I guess Chris started having his big tournaments, and they've played at each of them. And I know that Brian was upset that he won 11 different categories across a bunch of tournaments and only made it up to number 2, and he didn't jump Jeremy. And I was like, well, Jeremy beat you head to head. And he's like, okay. Took that. And so we had the East Central Regional Tournament. And obviously we've already gone over the results. Brian won that. He also won sealed. He didn't play booster because he wanted to get some extra type win games in just for practice and theory crafting and figuring out what decks work well against others and things like that before nationals. But Brian, you did it right here. Number 2 is I Am Bread, Jeremy Chambers. So Jeremy falls down this week to number 2, and that makes
1.
Number 1 is Mr.
Brian
Classic himself.
Jones.
Booster, Seal Jones, or Brian Jones, whatever. He's got a lot of different names, and all of them seem to be the names of winners. So
He stole my thunder, so I just had to kind of slip in there,
But Brian, you are the top seed, or not top seed, I guess, top ranked player based on season tournament results. And I guess it's hard to say based on the whole season because like Chad's done really well and he hasn't done bad at any in-person tournaments, but he's off the list this week. But that's just because there's been a lot of time between playing. So it's not necessarily who did the best over the tournament season, but who did the best of the last little bit to be on the power rankings. Mm-hmm. So it's not all encapsulating. So if you think you did well this tournament season, you're not on the power rankings. It's not a slight on you. It's just, this is where we are in the moment. But like I said, for power rankings on the next episode, we're going to try to retool that and use that as like players that we think have a really good shot to win categories at nationals. And we'll figure out how to rank that. And we'll do that when Jake returns into his co-host role on the next episode. So I guess we'll get you right into Deck of the Week.
This week's Deck of the Week is presented by Your Turn Games. Join us as we take a deeper look at a deck that has sparked our interest and spotlight the mind behind it.
All right, so I kind of gave a little bit of grief for him being number 6 in the power rankings. So we'll make it up to you, Jay Chambers, right here by spotlighting the deck that you played in the Midwest Regional Tournament. Now, this is a deck that is an interesting concept, blending a couple of different themes to do hand control things and territory control with Jehu. You've got Joshua the Conqueror. You've got Eliud. And post-exilic. So like, it's great that you're on the podcast here because if you think post-exilic, you're going to think Jayden. It's just, it kind of works.
I kind of hinted at it during the community or the like content portion or recent news or whatever portion of the podcast that I wanted to see this deck in action. And this is at least seeing the list, but I still got to go and watch that video. But I think there's a pretty much same version of the deck that Jay was playing against Babuni Tim in that video as he used for the Midwest Regional Tournament here.
Yeah, and this is a deck that I don't know how much it's different because I don't remember in great detail because it's been so long ago, but you played against him playing something similar to this. And I guess maybe it was a Grand Prix game. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I'm pretty sure you got 5-0'd in that game.
That sounds right, yeah.
It was just like his territory looked like he vomited cards and yours looked like you had nothing.
It was one of those games where I got a little grief from people being like, you got to stop playing janky decks against Jay. And I was like, you're probably right. But no, I mean, I enjoyed that game simply just seeing the deck in action, seeing it work well. I think my impression of it at that point was like, I don't know if this is going to be, if it's going to work as well as it did in that game as consistently, but I mean, it seems like this version of it is maybe a little more fine-tuned and it won a pretty, it won a big tournament, big in, the regionals sense. So as competitive people were bringing their best decks and their best efforts, whatever. And this was what came out on top. So good to see that.
Yeah. Have you, I know that we're doing this a little bit under the gun as far as getting the deck list because, guys, I want you to know that I love Jay, but he sent me over the deck list and I got a headache trying to load it into Lackey. So I gave up because
the written deck list.
The Lord did not bless him with good handwriting skills. So I hope in his official capacity as host of our co-host of Nationals, I hope he doesn't have to write down things because we might be in trouble. He needs to be the guy that like walks around with a voice memo, and when he wants to make notes to himself, he just records them.
Right. Yep.
That way he can at least tell what they are later.
Yep. Yeah. He's got the gift of speaking, but
yes,
writing, not so much.
Yeah. But so looking at it, it looks like a lot of things are similar to what I recall of that video of you guys playing, but here he's got like just a dominant lineup. Okay, so he's running Crowd's Choice, which is kind of one of those things that some people love it and some people think it takes up the power level of another dominant in that slot, depending on if your deck needs extra consistency. He's also got Buckler in here. He's got Mayhem, that's always a good card. And obviously he's got the 3 guarantees of Son of God, Second Coming, 3 Woes. And then he's got Doubt. It almost looks like someone was like, make a janky dominant lineup and see if you can make a deck out of it and win with it. And he took that and maybe that's what came up. But Doubt is one of those cards that like, it's cool in concept and theory, but I mean, we saw it a lot when LOC had first come out, but it's fallen way out of favor, and you don't see it in competitive decks very often. But what do you think about just the dominant lineup that he's got going here?
So, yeah, I mean, I think immediately what stands out is the consistency part. Like that's what he's going for, and I know that with the deck, like really what he's trying to do is set up a turn 1 Jehu with a weapon with a Lyud, hopefully having maybe a Zerubbabel in there to get a little more card advantage and kind of safety with the attack. But the main idea is just kind of getting that hand pressure on right away. And I think that the dominant lineup really supports that alongside the Zion, David's Tent, Throne of David, Covenant with David. So you've got all of these ways to pull out your offense, get your heroes going, and you see that with Buckler, Crowd's Choice, and Mayhem all trying to make that or the odds of getting that turn 1 setup right away. I think Mayhem works fairly well in this deck because he has got 3 weapons in the offense that he can empty out of his hand and then drop a Mayhem. So I think that's it makes sense especially in this deck. He's got a lot that he can put on the table, and then also he's running Peter's Curse, so he's not really trying to win any of his rescues with good dominance. He's trying to kind of play the counter, a little bit of a counter to the meta with Peter's Curse here, getting that CBN good dominant restriction to where I don't know if he's necessarily trying to activate that on turn 1 after he's dropped Buckler and Crowd's Choice, maybe kind of depending on what he expects from the opponent, but for sure probably turn 2 after maybe he's able to get his Son of God Second Coming out. He's got Solomon's Dream in there to kind of help get to those, and then once he's kind of drained out or emptied out his good dominance, he can activate Peter's Curse, and then Doubt is there as a way to use the that dominant slot that's not going to be for offense, but use it well, or use it probably the most efficiently on defense. I think a lot of what we see for defensive dominance, or evil dominance, I should say, are like Christian Martyr and Falling Away historically, being able to deal with a hero in a more guaranteed way, especially a lone hero. But I think with the current meta, we're seeing more banding, we're seeing more choose the blocker, and then AOC kind of stuff, just rescues that are more difficult to stop. And I think that Doubt does a better job of supporting the defense in blocking than Christian Martyr and Falling Away do, at least this particular style of defense, where he's got 4 single Brigade Evil enhancements just in the main deck that he can play on Doubt. They're all fairly effective there. And I do kind of like the way that Doubt, so it restricts dominance, so it turns off Resurrection, turns off Ride On Victoriously, Awesome Things, that kind of stuff. Angel of the Lord negates heroes, which is kind of nice because people are trying to abandon multiple heroes and then get a lot of value from the draw 2 on John the Fisherman, reserving something with Zacchaeus, and so on. And so, and then there's a lot of multi-brigade enhancements going around, and this answering all 3 of those seems like a fairly decent meta call. I'm not saying it should be in every deck. I think the statistics definitely don't show that it's close to that, but in this particular defense that Jay's got going here, I think that it works well. I assume that it works well. I haven't really seen it played. I don't think he had to use it against me. But I like it. Also with Unclean Until Evening, kind of works out well, or kind of another piece of synergy there. Unclean Until Evening can be the enhancement that negates their battle winner, and then if you do play it on an animal, which Jay doesn't have any in the main deck, he's got one in reserve. But if he does have that working, or if that is the case, then he can grab Doubt and play it right away if it makes sense. So yeah, I think all that to say, the dominant lineup is a little weird, but I think it's probably the best dominant lineup for this deck in particular. So I don't know. I like it. I want to try out this deck at some point.
Try it out at Nationals. Do it.
We'll see.
Now, you mentioned for the style of defense that he has there as you were talking about it, but if I know one thing about Jay, it's usually he's going to build a deck that has, it's going to make sure it has the ability to block.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was looking at this, and obviously he does have some dual alignment, but I was looking, because Lackey sorts the card types. It's like 5 evil characters, and then there's 5 evil enhancements. I was like, wait. But obviously he does have some dual alignment, and so he's got 4 dual alignment characters.
Yep.
He's got the Repentant Thief, which is the Condemned Thief, and then he's got Zacchaeus. He's also got King Jehu, obviously, and Judas. Now I can see everyone except for Jehu being used as an evil character, but that would still put him at 8, which feels like when Jay makes one of these like outlier decks, that's not like a straight and meta deck, like he's trying to beat things that people are playing. He's just playing. I don't know if I would say he does this for fun when he builds these kind of decks, but he just likes to feel like he likes to show that you can play other things and other styles that maybe other players aren't doing or even considering. But when I looked at it, I was like, man, for one of those outlier decks, usually those are beefy on defense for him, and this one's a little bit light, which makes sense because he's trying to manipulate the things that you're going to be able to do when he makes rescues by getting evil cards out of your hand, sniping cards out of territory. There's also one other thing that I thought was kind of it's cool that he has it. I don't know how quickly he could get to it, but this deck completely gets shut down, especially with Crowd's Choice, Buckler, things like that. If somebody drops a Nazareth down or a search counter, because you're using most of your dominance, obviously Mayhem is not. It's consistency by way of just raw drawing and hoping you get what you need, or maximizing getting things out of your hand and then doing it. But he does have Satan Seed, and I think that's a cool dynamic that I've seen play out this season. Is there's a lot of players that are playing Nazareth, and then there's a lot of players that are like, well, I'll let them play all their stuff, and then just whenever I need it, I'll drop down Satan Seed. And it's kind of cool to see that he's got that packed in here. Although it seems to me like maybe that should be potentially in the main deck if you're so reliant on searches. And if they drop that down turn one, maybe you just happen to have drawn it. But what do you think about the overall dynamic this season that you've seen in your games of people playing Satan Seed to just wipe out protection?
You know, I feel like I really haven't seen a whole lot of Satan Seed. Like, even personally, like in decks that I want to play it, it's just one of those cards that seems like it gets cut more often than not. I think there are some decks that definitely need and should play it. Some such as like Jeremy's deck that he played at one of the big tournaments. I can't remember exactly, but he built like a deck that was kind of impartial judgment, hand control kind of
using
stuff.
Church of Christ to create the tokens.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
And so you want to be able to hit their hand.
Right. Yeah. So Satan Seat to deal with the storehouse, stable, Crowd's Choice, all the or Crowd's Lost Soul, all those hand protection stuff, just kind of in one blanket thing. Like I think that's definitely good. I think I agree with you that in this particular deck, I would like to see it in the main deck. But the thing is, like, obviously not everybody's playing Nazareth. Most people are playing some form of hand protection, but this deck doesn't necessarily need it. Like, I mean, you've got Teaching in Parables that can buy you some time, then 3 Woes that can do it. But yeah, I mean, running into a Nazareth would be pretty tricky, and without 3 Woes, I don't think there's really any way that he gets it out of reserve unless he's able to do like, the Thief to negate Nazareth during a block and then play Crowd's Choice to grab it from reserve, something like that. Or play Wages during the battle to grab it from reserve. But I would be tempted to try to squeeze it into the main deck if I were him. It's maybe something that he's considered, but being able to play it, like, so I'm using the Thief to block, negate their Nazareth, exchange to the Highwayman, and then play Nazareth from deck or something like that. Or play Satan Seed from deck. That seems like a way to do it too.
You talk about everyone or most people have hand protection. There's one crazed monkey running around the meta, and I'm pretty sure he's still running dual. So he's got like Bethlehem Stable and Storehouse. Mm-hmm. He had a video not too long ago, like, how many storehouses do you need, or something like that. And the answer is more. And it's just kind of cool that there is a tool out there in our deck building toolbox to just slap this card down, and now you're forcing them to have to answer this card, or you've answered several different cards that they might be playing that are based on protection.
Yeah, I kind of took a page out of that book in one of my recent decks that I had played, or I think it was maybe the one I was going to play against Alex Oliar, but we didn't end up getting our game in for the Lackey Grand Prix, which I guess now that I think about it, I don't know if actually, or if we brought that up during the recent news, but that was last week's video, where I just went over that deck. But I think I had both Storehouse and Stable in there. It's something that you might see a little more often. I guess just the value that they provide is nice, and having that early hand protection more frequently is seemingly more important these days, despite there being the occasional entrapping Pharisees or something that's going to punish you for it.
Or Goliath after you've banded all your guys in with Resurrection, so the only other ones are in your hand.
Right, yeah.
That you drew.
Yep. I think the one other thing is that I could see Jehu being used on defense in this deck, and I think that might be why he's got King Saul's Spear in here. Is if you play Jehu as evil and put the spear on him, like he's fairly vulnerable if they negate him and choose the blocker. Like that's, you got to hope that King Saul's Spear will actually work or something like that. But you can exchange for one of your thieves or someone in territory, probably not Sapphira, because then she would negate Jehu, but exchanging for Condemned Thief, something like that, and then on your turn use 20 shekels to bounce him. During your attack, you can do Baruch to Zerubbabel to Eliezer to do Jehu exchanging for Baruch, I guess, and then if you band a Jehoshaphat after that, then you can bounce your Jehu during your attack, and then put him down as an evil character in your discard phase.
Okay, well, I've got one other question for you.
Yep.
About this, being that it's at least under the, I guess, big picture view of being a post-exilic deck. Is it really a post-exilic deck if it doesn't have Jeshua?
I feel like the Jeshua and the Akeem those are the two cards that I feel like if it were truly a post-exilic deck, I would see them in here. But Zerubbabel and Eliud, they get them close. They make it close.
Do you think Purple Warriors, I know you did a little bit of playtesting. I know you probably haven't seen, or maybe you haven't seen the final version of cards and things. Do you think a strategy like this is improved with some of the new stuff coming out, or is this collection of characters works better for what this deck is doing? Since the new warriors are built around having the weapons, so obviously you would always have weapons for Jehu.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that the deck would definitely kind of look a little bit different if you're kind of gearing towards the new Purple Warriors. You could still run Jehu fairly effectively there, and like you said, I don't know what the cards are doing in their final form, but just kind of from what we've seen so far, they seems like they want to do a little more synergy with the weapons, and so probably not going to see that paired with posties too much, just because a few of them are warrior class, but none of them are purple. They can only use the weapons that still have red on them, which we're not going to be seeing any more of, unfortunately.
Tragic. Changing with the times.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is definitely an interesting look at this deck, and I know that it looks like it might be kind of one of those decks that you have to play a couple of times to figure out the best lines of play and when to do certain things.
For sure.
So it might be a little bit more, I guess, involved learning how to pilot it. But if you want to ask questions, you know who the pilot is or who the creator is. It's Jay. And it is going to eventually be shared on Land of Redemption. So you will be able to see this deck on Land of Redemption, probably with a Lackey file so you can pop it in and try it out. And it's just kind of a cool thing because it's kind of out of left field. And that's kind of why I wanted to spotlight it. Was everybody's playing everything that they think is going to do well at Nationals right now. And Jay just out of nowhere is like, hey, I'll play this random fun deck that I've had, kind of on the back burner ever since I beat Jayden 5-0. So it was kind of just a nice change of pace, I guess, to see something different.
Yeah. And also I think it's maybe worth mentioning that you and I both came to the conclusion of wanting to make this the deck of the week separately. So that kind of of course, I guess maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I think it worked out that very well that way.
I definitely thought of the idea mostly because of the deck that it like what it was, and I knew it was from that video. He had played it against you, and I was like, it makes sense since Jayden will be in the chair here as the co-host.
All right, fair enough.
But yeah, it was kind of cool having it, and we almost last minute, like I was all good after I saw Jay's list handwritten to just scrap the thing, but then I reached out and asked him for a lackey file list or whatever, so we were able to do it. But it'll be shared on Land of Redemption in the coming days, and you guys can go check it out. If you see some random card in here that you haven't heard of before or whatever, and you need to purchase a card, you know where to go. Since the Deck of the Week is sponsored by Your Turn Games, so you can go check that out. And another reminder that you can buy cards right now, at least for a few more days, with 10% off of all singles, and then you can also pick them up at Nationals to save on the shipping. So go and check our boy Andy out.
Now, it's your chance to join the podcast and have your voice heard as we get ready to answer your questions with this week's Community Mailbag.
We just got a letter. Why do I think of Blue's Clues every time that the intro plays for the segment? But anyway, we do have some questions that you guys have shared with us. You actually shared them in time for the last episode, but I dropped the ball, didn't get that segment done for the last episode. I mean, it was already well over 3 hours to edit, so
Fair enough.
feel like throwing another 45-minute section on the back, or segment on the back, probably not in my best interest if I wanted to get some sleep. But
see, I still haven't listened to it yet, so I wouldn't have even known if you hadn't let the cat out of the bag.
Well, I didn't tell you what the questions were, so now you need to go listen still.
Oh,
but I guess being that you are our guest co-host, I'll just let you take it away with the first question here.
Oh, all right. See how it is. This question is one that's, I think, been a little bit controversial, I guess is maybe not the right word, but it's come up a number of times. Like still people have kind of done some fan created ideas with it. So we'll just get right into it. This question is from Smitty Seven Eyes, and he asks, should the Nephilim / Book of Enoch / other works be included in the game? Why or why not? He gave a little bit of context for the question as well. He said, coming from someone who's not very religious, first and foremost, I want to thank the community for extending a hand and welcoming everyone. That's something that I also appreciate about our community is, and that's what people always ask about Redemption if they're not sure, maybe not always, but they're like, do you need to be a Christian or do you need to know anything about the Bible to play? And I'm usually like, well, no, we've got a pretty welcoming community, and there's...
we will indoctrinate you.
There are a few
Just
things
kidding.
About the Bible that might be helpful to know, like the testament of certain books, but it's not like... there's no Bible trivia or whatever is a direct part of the game. So yeah, I can echo Dave's sentiment there. And then he says, my question would be, though, what do you think is the most appealing aspect of Redemption besides the faith element? What would be something you would show to interested players or beginners that would draw them in? So he's got kind of a two-part, or I guess two separate questions here that I think are somewhat related. So the first one here, should the Nephilim, Book of Enoch, other works be included in the game? He's kind of asking it, I think, from maybe from a subjective standpoint, because why or why not? So it's kind of personally, I think I agree with the direction that we've gone so far, where we pull things only from the canonical inspired scripture. That's also been avoiding even the apocryphal books, what's included in the Catholic Bible. Even though the creator of the game is Catholic, it's still we're still stick to the is it proto-canonical? Is that what I don't remember the exact term, but the 66 books of the Bible,
The agreed upon books.
Sure,
that cause less controversy.
Yeah. Now that's not entirely the case for all of Redemption, because we have in the past done some cards that are referencing Josephus to kind of just pull, or I guess pulling from there the information about characters that, or people that we know lived during the time of the Bible, kind of relying on that more as a historical source rather than in a historical and inspired source that the Bible is. And so I think Book of Enoch is kind of in that category of, it's something that was historically written but not inspired, and because it's not really as much historical fact, I guess, or it's not exactly like Josephus in that sense, something that I think we kind of want to stay away from, just to avoid, like, I guess, misrepresenting what the theme of the game is going toward. Book of Enoch has some things that I think are true, but I think some things that are also not, that can be dangerous, I guess, to kind of go down that road and kind of go on that too much. Some things that I think are more speculative. Not something I've studied in too much detail, but do you have something you wanted to?
Yeah, I think that this is kind of in line with, you remember when we won teams, you referenced earlier, Jeremy, helping me win teams at Nationals, and we got the player creator card, and he had already won type 2, so he designed a card, and then I got to design a card, which turned out to be Eliezer of Damascus. But that was like the fourth different card that I tried to design. One of the first things I wanted to do was like the days of Noah, and I wanted to have where Jesus says it will be as it was in the days of Noah when they didn't see it coming, so shall be the coming of the Son of Man. I wanted to tie Genesis with kind of some reference there from the New Testament. I thought that would be cool. But anyway, the next idea I got on was Ishmael. And I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand with this, and there's definitely, I guess, probably more reason to include Ishmael in the game in some way. I know there's controversy or at least discussion about whether he would be a hero or an evil character, or what his role would be within the game structure itself. And I guess just to fully explain, the idea that I came up with was kind of an Elimelech, so he would never rescue. He was CBP, and he would banish himself to bring in a hero that would do the rescuing, because he had to go away for Isaac to inherit, the covenant and all that. And I thought that would be kind of a cool way, but it was presented to me that it introduces the potential for controversy and dissension among people that are playing the game. And just if we can avoid having the opportunity to have dissension and people disagreeing and having fundamental issues with the source material, then in the name of the game and what the game stands for, Rob is always adamant that the game is for fellowship and creating, a welcoming environment. And I think just adding in the potential for something outside of that, the cons of that far outweighs any positives you would get. So I think when it comes to introducing things that are not within the agreed upon 66 books and things, even if you are of a section of the Christian faith that believes in, additional sources are inspired works of God, written by man but inspired by God. If there's someone else that doesn't believe that, it's like, if we can avoid putting it in altogether and just avoid that, then I think that's the right path to be on, just to keep it clean. And I think that it really aggravated me, and I'll be honest, it frustrated me so much when I got told no on the card, and then I was told that would never be an option for redemption, unless the views and opinions of what the game stands for changes, because it's just counter to that end. You're not, increasing fellowship of the game and, welcoming environment if you introduce controversy that you don't have to. And I think that because of the experience I had with that, when I read this question about including those outside sources, I'm in favor of what the elder team has chosen to do so far, which is kind of limit those things so that we can, whether you're Church of Christ, Church of God, Assembly of God, Baptist, Catholic, whatever, like I feel like you can come into the game and you can see the source material and like, oh, okay. You don't have a big problem with it. Now, obviously there's people like Jay that take a little issue with the fact that Judas is a hero, but okay, little things like that. But I mean, I don't think that that's a groundbreaking thing, but I think bringing in things that literally has caused dissension between Christians and other religions and other conflicts in the world and things, like, why do we need to bring that into our game? So not to ramble on, but like, I think that I'm in favor of what the game has done so far, which is avoiding those things to limit the controversy potential.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like, it's advertised, I guess, as a Bible-based, trading card game or whatever. So like sticking to content that's in the Bible, I think is kind of what they want to do. And then, but that doesn't mean that everything in the Bible needs to be included. I mean, if there's anyone out there who fully understands everything in the Bible, let me know, because that means that Jesus came back. I should already know, I suppose, if that's the case.
We missed the boat.
But I think there are some things that we just don't, we don't know for sure whether or not they would, be correctly represented by, a hero or an evil character. And I think, you mentioned Ishmael. I think Nephilim kind of falls under that category as well, where it's not something that, I think people have different interpretations or views on that. So it's not worth the division that it would, probably cause, just because, a lot of us are passionate about what the Bible says, and that's a good thing. But, there are some things that are maybe more secondary issues that we don't need to be as passionate about, that we still like to discuss, and that might detract a little bit from what the card design or the purpose of the game is, I guess.
I think that the second question that he asked, though, kind of there's so much to enjoy about the game already in the depth of it. And like, I mean, we haven't even explored all of the, I guess, source material that we can for characters and things in the Bible that we, like, in the books that we already have in the Bible, without reaching outside of that. Like, you created Jayden. I'm trying to force say it so I don't just say you created Jayden.
I mean, just like Jayden, I think would maybe be the more, I don't think any of us are really going to know how they actually pronounced it, but
yeah. So that's a new character, and I guess the card pool, and then Eliezer of Damascus hadn't been printed before, so just there's two examples of just us getting player cards that bring in new characters, and there's other events that maybe it's been covered in a little detail, but could be covered in greater detail and things like that. So he's asking, like, what can you show about the game? And I think kind of hand in hand with his other question is, I think it's a lot easier for us not to have to answer some of those controversial things to someone that might come into the game from a Christian faith background and be like, hey, why do you have this? And now if we're having to defend what the game is, then we don't get to show them the cool things about the game, which is the cool gameplay, the depth of strategy, the fellowship that it creates within the community that has been built upon this game. So I think it kind of works hand in hand with, like, let's leave that out and focus on the good things of the game. But what would be something that you would show someone to draw them in, like if they were interested in this, and how would you get them? Because I feel like a lot of people are up front, they're like interested, but how do you get them to, I guess, commit and sell them on this game?
Yeah, I think one of the main things that I think still holds true, it's probably something that I would have been I would have been more vocal about, like more like a few years ago maybe. So like he mentioned as an example the community, and I think that that's still one of the best things that Redemption has to offer, especially compared to a lot of other games. but I also, I mean, I have started, right? A few years ago, I did start playing Magic the Gathering as well, and like there's, I mean, it doesn't compare to the community that I have, or that I've become a part of with Redemption, but it's very, at least in the circles or groups that I would play with, it's fairly casual and welcoming. So I wouldn't necessarily, if I was trying to invite someone who does play Magic or something to play Redemption, I wouldn't necessarily lead with like, oh yeah, it's a really welcoming community, just because, I mean, for one, I think that can mean different things these days, where welcoming means accepting or loving of everything, which is good. We try to be inviting or welcoming, loving, but what that means to different people is different these days. And also, I think it kind of what they're looking for wouldn't necessarily be the same. I guess, like, I don't know, if you're inviting someone who is a Christian, but they play a secular card game or something, then maybe that would be more of a draw to them. But I think that the community is going to be kind of different for the kind of person that you're drawing in, and so maybe I would, if I'm playing the game, and I would be like, oh, check out this card, it looks pretty cool. I think the artwork and something is like a thing that can draw people in, just with some of the really cool designs and art that we've had in recent sets, and with the fundraiser cards and the foils. Like, that's all, shiny stuff draws people in. That's just kind of how it works. And so I think that that's something that Redemption has gotten a lot better at, and has historically been fairly good at doing, is just presenting itself well with the the artwork of the cards. It's just been good quality. The layout, people have different opinions about that with the classic cards, but I think the art has always been fairly good compared to...
I mean, when you can see it and the words aren't over it, maybe.
Yeah. I probably would not start with mechanics of the game. I would maybe say that the game is simple to learn at a kind of basic level, and maybe then advertise, or say that if you're looking to really get into the game, like, there's there's quite a depth of strategy. So if you've got people like I feel like Jake, and like Babooni Tim, they were people that got very good at the game relatively quickly, and I think that was because they had a desire to just really get to know the depth of the strategy in the game, and play a lot of games, spend some time thinking about it, and or studying the rules even, and I think that's something that, if you're a hardcore gamer, you like that kind of depth of strategy, then Redemption would be a good option for you.
Yeah, I think Jared would also probably fall into that category. He did relatively well at his first Nats, and he's kind of one of those thinkers like that. But absolutely, I would say the depth of the strategy is what I would show to most people, because if you're interested in a card game, if you're going to invest and be the type of player that's going to invest, you want to know that there's going to be payoff for that, and there's going to be something that's challenging about it. And I think also, even if you're showing it to a Christian or someone who is, faith-based background, I feel like most things that get slapped with a Christian label, and I know that I'm a little bit, maybe I've been skewed or whatever, but I feel like most things, like, it's a Christian card game. What is that? Like Jesus Pokemon? It almost like can feel like you're telling them about it, like a knockoff thing that somebody just slapped,
right,
Christian on and said it was about the Bible, but it's, it's not a very rich, like an enriched product on its own. Yeah. So I think if you take and separate the source material, and you don't even think about that aspect of it, and you just think about the game and the depth of strategy, you can position to share that with believers and people that have a Christian faith background, and people that are, not of that same background, whether they be other religions, atheist, whatever. I think if you're like, hey, here's this game at face value, yes, it is based on the Bible, but look at the depth of strategy. And I think that's going to let people see that, oh, if I get into this game, like there is room to be creative within the game and the scope of the game. And it's not just Jesus Pokemon, just some kind of ripoff with a Christian label on it. So I think depth of strategy is definitely what I would do, but it also works two ways. You're going to pull in the people that are going to stick with a game like this or whatever. You might tell somebody about the depth of strategy and they'd be like, oh, that's too much for me. That's too rich for my blood. Yeah. And I mean, that's okay. The game's not going to be for everyone. All we can do is share it with them and let them know that we enjoy the game and see if it might be something that enriches their lives by giving them a hobby. And it can be something that reaffirms your faith. Like you can learn a lot about characters and events and things of the Bible that you don't necessarily know, and you absorb that as you play. But I don't know that that's ever something that is the best thing to lead off with. I think you just let them know up front it is based on the Bible, and then you get into like what the game is, and then you let that kind of come full circle. That's how I would approach that.
Yep, and I think one other thing is that there's a relatively low financial barrier for entry. I mean, and I know that there are some people who they just buy the starter decks and then they just keep them with the rest of their game collection. Maybe pull out the starter decks to play once in a while with a friend or their spouse or whoever, kids. But no, and those are relatively inexpensive. But even kind of the most competitive decks in Redemption have a fairly, I guess I would say maybe relatively low price tag compared to I think some of the more or like most competitive decks in, say, Magic the Gathering or some other of those secular card games where you're gonna have cards that are thousands of dollars.
So that will do it for Smitty's 7 Eyes. So Dave, thanks for the questions, and hopefully we answered them and gave you something to chew on there. But the next question comes from our guest from last week, our last episode, Mr. Tyler Stevens. And obviously he is designing cards and things, so this is probably just him trying to check the pulse of the community, so to speak. But he said, what book or books of the Bible do you think should get a focal point of a future set? And already I can tell you that everyone has, like, at some point, maybe not everyone, but I know Psalms is one that gets talked about a lot, like having a music style set, or Gabe's mentioned like potentially doing something that has like poetry and songs and psalms and things as a mini set or something like that. So those are fairly popular, but as far as like not necessarily what gets talked about a lot, like what area of the Bible do you think we could explore with a set focused on it, even if it has to be a smaller set and can't be the full 129?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of what hasn't been really like tapped, I guess, as far as Redemption yet is, I think, like you said, Psalms. There's a lot of cards from Psalms, but there are a lot of Psalms in general, so there's a lot that could be added to that and done a little bit more with kind of music and maybe kind of expanding it to different brigades and that kind of stuff. I think Proverbs is maybe kind of in a similar boat. But I was kind of thinking that there are a lot of New Testament books where it's kind of hard to make cards from them, but I think my favorite New Testament book is the book of James. And I think that there are there's a lot of symbolism in there that you could draw ideas from, at least get like some good enhancements there. You could have a few, I guess we already have a dual testament card with the humble lost soul. It's from James. But I think there are a few other references there that you could kind of go back to things. He talks about Abraham, he talks about Rahab. So I think that James would be a cool book that you could put kind of a mini set around. Like I don't even know if you'd be able to get a full 129 from that, but that would be cool.
And I know that I talked about earlier that there's so much of the Bible that we still have yet to do and things. a lot of the things that we haven't explored necessarily fall into like small pockets of things versus like, here's this big thing that we can make an entire set out of. So I think what I would like to see is, and I know that we've been kind of conditioned just because of the OC block, as it's called, and then the Israel's deliverance, rebellion, and now inheritance. But it's like we pick this section of the Bible or whatever, this time period, and then we focus on it. I think what would be really cool is to take a theme, and then you get to pull some of the information from our source material from different pockets of the Bible that fit into a theme that isn't just a time period or whatever. Like lineage of Christ was all the Old Testament building up to prophecy of Christ was like all the prophecies forecasting. And I guess that's kind of like it, but it all was like mostly Old Testament. So it kind of felt like it was more time period based. And obviously GOC is about Jesus's life and ministry on earth. And one thing I think of is like Wars of the Bible or something like that, where you could have like,
or like warriors.
Well, yeah, but like just different things. And like, you could also talk about, I guess it's not necessarily, I don't know how much of it would fall into like just trying to put too much focus on like one section versus grabbing stuff from each, but like Psalms and like if it was songs of the Bible or something like that, and then you could grab stuff from Old Testament, New Testament. I know that it wasn't too long ago that Revelation of John was done, but it feels like some of that stuff has been outclassed now. I think it would be really cool to focus on maybe some of the end time prophecies, but grabbing like stuff from Daniel, blending it with Revelation. So you get all kinds of stuff. And then like some of the stuff that Jesus told the disciples about the end times and things like, I don't know what would you call that? The doomsday set.
See, that stuff gets to be a little bit complicated though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just throwing out examples. I don't know, on the spot, and I didn't do a lot of thinking about these questions before we're answering them. So I might be rambling a little bit, but like, I feel like grabbing a overarching theme and then like just grabbing random spots of the Bible that fit into that versus, all right, we're doing this about this and fitting the entire set within this frame. Yeah.
And I think that's something that, I mean, I kind of joked about it before, but it's something that has been done for a couple of sets in Redemption's history, like with Warriors. It is kind of a, one that goes throughout the whole Bible that, it has mostly Old Testament because that's where most of the warriors were, but, some New Testament characters in there, like, the strong angel. I guess, Simeon was in there, although he's wasn't an actual warrior, but, so that was that, and women. So I guess the women's set was kind of an example of that as well, where it's, taking women all throughout the Bible. I think the one tricky thing with that is making those kind of sets like draftable, and maybe that's a little bit easier to do now with, I guess a couple fewer brigades, or 3 fewer brigades in the game. But yeah, that is something that they've been doing recently that I think has worked out well with kind of doing the specific themes that are just, like 3 brigades in, the offense and defense, or so it was 5 for some of the bigger sets. But it does make it difficult to make the sets kind of blend well for drafting and that kind of stuff. But I'm sure there are ways around that you can kind of, we can figure something out.
Well, we can make Tyler figure it out. It was his question. Yeah. But going into the next one here, this is from Redemption Gator. So apparently we've got like maybe a Gator fan here. Maybe it's a Florida fan. I don't know. But Mr. Gator says, what is the card interaction that you find most interesting or most surprising? For example, I recently found out that Blood Avenger can block, get discarded by the numbers, and then take the hero with him to stop the rescue. Another could be the way having crowds out can get rid of your instead options from the opponent's entrapping Pharisee. So what do you think is an interaction that is interesting or surprising? But before you give yours, I'll give an example since I feel like you
Give
might
me
need
a little more time to think. Yeah.
There you
Thanks.
go. So I think one of the things that comes to mind for me, and I would say most surprising, and I don't want it to sound like, maybe it is second guessing, or maybe it's just having a different opinion, but I think about like Herod's Temple. Herod's Temple is one of those cards that it's had such an impact on the game for the last few years since it came out. And I think it's such a, it's a good card, and I like some things about it, but one thing that I do not like about it is that it is a good fortress that protects your evil characters. And I feel like the game has done such a good job of making alignment specific things work with that alignment and not having a lot of like crossover that doesn't make a lot of sense. And I mean, I can get it from that side that, hey, it can protect just gospel humans, whatever. But should it be protecting the highwayman? Should it be protecting plunderers and maybe some of the Pharisees and things? Like, what would have been cool is if it was somehow a dual alignment fortress and you chose when you put it in play who it protects. So it either protects good or it protects evil. I just don't like a good card doing both, because when the evil card in your territory is protected and I have something that is on a good card that says negate a good card, or negate an evil card, I feel like I should be able to negate the thing that's protecting you since it's like going by alignment, and then I should be able to attack your guys in territory. But I have to have a way to negate a good card, which usually just means your woes.
Yeah, I feel like the power level of Herod's Temple, I think, also could merit it just being like both while it's in play, which I know is something that is not really precedented in the game, but having it be able to be targeted as a good card or an evil card even while it's in play, I think would maybe balance it out a little more, just because it's a fairly powerful card. But also, like you said, if it was just one or the other and it only protected characters of the same alignment, then yeah, I can see that.
I think that I find that interesting, and maybe not surprising now, but when it first came out, I was pretty surprised that there was a good fortress protecting evil characters.
Yeah, I mean, it was still, I don't know, I guess used for things that were not honoring God, I guess. I don't know.
Right. So was Solomon's Temple, and I mean, I guess we at least have that represented with Corrupted Temple.
Yeah.
Which gives it an evil element. Like you have to put the evil on the good card to get the evil benefit.
Right.
But this is like, hey, skip placing this card on there and getting the evil benefit. You can just be evil when you start.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't mind it just protecting gospel heroes or human heroes, and then the toss part still working for both alignments. You know, I think that would be okay. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I guess one to maybe kind of carry the theme of being slightly disgruntled by it is one card that I used to like a lot. I mean, like, you know, Justin, he would use it in just about every deck, and I feel like I kind of got a little bit of that from him. But Urim and Thummim was a card that I really liked being able to play, getting that free hand information and stuff. But then when they changed the artifact rules so that you can't activate an artifact that you've already deactivated that turn, means that you can't I can't have my Holy of Holies active and then activate Urim and Thummim, which says I can activate a different artifact, and then I can't reactivate my Holy of Holies. I have to activate something else. It just makes it so that Urim and Thummim doesn't work quite the way that you would want it to. I mean, I think it's still okay if you have like some tabernacle or temple artifacts or something that you can move around and you're going to be activating different artifacts, but just doesn't it's not quite the same. So it's I guess that's not really a card interaction, it's more of a rules interaction, but
we get what you mean though.
Yeah,
I think that
I just thought of a different card interaction, but you can go ahead if you're still going on the Urim and Thummim thing.
Well, I was just going to say that I guess it's kind of one of those things, like we were talking at the tournament that I went to this past weekend. Brandon, that's in Chris's, I guess his play group there. He comes to those tournaments. He was talking about how there's cards in Magic that just operate outside of the game rules. Like they're designed to, apparently there's cards that are printed that says, while this card is in play, you cannot lose the game. Then if this card leaves play, you lose the game, but then you can layer another one that stops if this card leaves play and it just fizzles and things. So the cards manipulate the game rules. And we don't really have that in Redemption, but I wouldn't mind seeing a new version of Urim and Thummim that did kind of that. So it was able, somehow it granted itself the ability to work how it's intended. Or they could just change the rule, but just for this one card, just so that it operates as intended, like a promo version of it that somehow with wording, and I don't know if that's a slippery slope we don't want to go down, but
yeah.
I mean, it is disappointing to see a card that could be a cool card and could be useful in a lot of decks, especially now that Priest have, gotten reprinted into clay and there's a lot of things going on with it. And then you just can't use this one card that was made for that theme.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the few priestly artifacts that Eliezer can actually search for. Yeah. But yeah, I could see that. I could also just see them planning to reprint it at some point and maybe make it similar to Temple Veil, where you get some other benefit. You get to look at their hand and then you can deactivate it, something like that. But I guess one card interaction that I was kind of reminded of when you brought up the example of crowds getting rid of your instead option from the opponents and trapping Pharisees was one that I think was kind of more recently discovered. I think it was Renee that first brought it up or kind of asked about, is this how this works? But with Joseph the Blessed from Israel's Rebellion, he gives you the option, opponent might underdeck an evil card from hand. If they do not, your good Genesis enhancements cannot be negated. And so if that first part of his ability is negated, the underdeck option, then they don't get the option to underdeck from hand. And because they didn't underdeck from hand, then the modifier condition is met for the good Genesis enhancements cannot be negated. So that was a
You're going to get us down a slope. You're going to get us down a slope.
A slope?
Yes. Because that interaction, I understand it, but I have been frustrated, or I was frustrated when I first started learning the game, that cards that had that conditional ability for the modifier to work, you couldn't negate. So if all of your Genesis heroes if all of your heroes are Genesis on Benjamin or something, naturally, and it might not, you might tell me that this is a stupid thought, but I thought I should be able to negate that so that card can't see the game state anymore because I negated its ability to see if the heroes are Genesis, because that's a condition that has to be met. But if I negate its ability to fulfill itself, maybe that's, you're looking at me like I'm stupid. Okay. Okay.
I wasn't going to say it, but no. I think that's reasonable.
Otherwise they just get modifiers for free on those older cards.
Part of the confusion, I think, is with a card like Man with Withered Hand, where it's you may reveal your hand. If you do, your enhancements cannot be negated. And I think if that ability is negated, you can't reveal your hand. And so you don't get the modifier. And I think that maybe can confuse people because if that first part is negated, then the second part doesn't do anything. But in this case, it's kind of the opposite, where that first part is negated and then the condition with that modifier is met. And I think that's just kind of the way that modifiers work, the conditions that go along with them can't be negated, but the other parts, if it's in a different sentence, I think it's a fair assumption that part can be negated if it's not directly tied to the modifier there. I don't want to say that it's a firm rule, because there might be an example that goes to the contrary, but yeah. So anyways, in a recent deck, I did the honeypot with blue kind of thing, where Holy of Holies to get the CB enhancements on Joseph. Did you actually finish it?
Yes, you hooked me in when you said blue. You had me at blue, dog.
Fair enough. All right, yeah. So that's one of the interactions that I find pretty interesting and kind of fun that I found recently, or not me, but other people found, and I came across and wanted to try it out.
Yeah, that's cool. I guess we'll move on to the next one here, and this was by Anonymous, so I don't know who sent this one, but it says, if you were a redemption hero, so apparently you can't be an evil character, so I'm already out, dog. If you were a redemption hero, what would be your brigade, your numbers, and your special ability? Well, we already know what you would be because you're in the game, Jayden. But yeah, if you were a redemption hero, what would you do?
And I feel like as John, you can't really just put me in a box like that because you've got.
I've got my own box.
Yeah, you got a few boxes.
We're tossing and we're blue.
So if I were a redemption hero, I mean, I feel like my brigade would probably have to be blue. I unfortunately didn't make it to the 2010 national tournament. I was kind of bummed about that because that was the one where you could create your own hero for yourself. But if I was, I would probably be blue, just because that's the best color. I
can agree with that.
Not just in redemption. I'm just saying, like in general, for everything. It's where it's at. And then my numbers, I feel like there aren't really any significant like numbers that I would go for. Maybe once I've thought of a special ability, like whether I want to be a bigger or smaller hero, but I guess I could just, go based on my birthday and just be a 6'8" or something like that. And then special ability, I feel like I would want to do something kind of unique to like what I like to play. So maybe something with like posties. I mean, I guess you kind of called out that I do have a created card that was kind of my that I designed and like I think if I had full range with that card, it wasn't limited, kind of like the player created cards were. I don't know, maybe do something that works similarly to Jeshua, but kind of, or maybe something that has to do with kind of the fortress synergy. I don't know, I'd have to think about that a little more. I mean, I could just say what I wanted Jayden to be able to do after I had submitted it and it had been gone to print and everything, and I realized that instead of discarding an evil card, it should banish an evil card, because that's what posties, they count like evil cards in your opponent's banish pile if he instead of discarding an evil card when the condition was met, if he were able to banish. I think that would have been cool.
I don't know. I don't know what my ability would be, but I feel like I would be blue as well. And
be a Genesis hero.
Yeah, probably
0-10. Maybe ban to
maybe draw some and then ban two, but not to any Genesis hero because that's too strong. We got to reserve that for Melchizedek, or for Righteous Seeker, ban to a hero.
You'd have Salty in your identifier. No.
Yeah. But I feel like I would want to do something with toss. And I know that they said this week that toss is going to get looked at after nationals. And I'm hoping that it's more of just maybe a way to clean up how people perceive the ability works and understanding of how it works versus changing it, because it really is my favorite game mechanic. Because there's when I first got into the game, there was like, you could play this, but it was really good if you could make these enhancements CBN by playing them on certain people, or if they were just old school enhancements that were CBN. And how do you get around that kind of stuff? By making them toss them, like Coliseum tossing things. Yeah. Like that was a cool concept that I picked up, and I was like, hey, I don't have to worry if they have CBN stuff because I'll just make them toss it.
Right.
And I just gravitated towards it. And then obviously blue had Leviathan, which you could toss. Unfortunately, the best way to play toss then without the newer understanding of how peace actually works, being that it allows you to ban, but it was usually revolving around Job. And Job is kind of like I'm not hating on Joe, but it's a slow deck, and it's like it's really, you got to be a certain style of player that likes to watch paint dry to enjoy that deck.
Yeah.
But I feel like it would be something to do with toss. I'm not really sure what we could do with toss that's not already being done. So I wouldn't want to like just copy.
Yeah.
But
okay, so I'm as we're talking about this, I'm kind of realizing that I think we answered the question a little bit wrong though, because we're kind of answering it as like what we want to see in the game, or like what we would do. But I feel like our special ability maybe has to do something a little more with our personality, you know?
Well, that's where I was going with, like, that's my favorite game mechanic. So I feel like that's what I would do as a hero.
Okay, yeah,
but
I could see that.
How would you put your personality into a card?
Well, now I'm wishing I hadn't said anything because I got nothing.
It's kind of a hard question to answer. Like, you could create a card, but is that you or is that just this card?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm a musician, so maybe, you know, could do something with that.
Oh, that's cool.
With music.
I could do like, well, I don't really know. That's kind of been done a little bit much. Assembling and bringing heroes together would be cool. Not like a band, but maybe like I don't know, something like Noah. I can exchange and bring multiple guys out. The old Cloud of Witness. But I don't know, because I assemble like my staff at work. I don't know. I don't know how to put me into a card.
All right, Nick Fury.
Can you have half musician identifier? Because if so, I mean, I can strum a few chords, and I feel like I enjoy playing guitar, even though I know I'm terrible at it.
I see that guitar hanging up back there.
Yeah, well, it's a little mini one too, so I can fit it right here and play. But people on the podcast aren't going to be able to see that, so now they're going to just imagine that there's a guitar right by me.
They could hear it if you want to strum a few chords for us.
Nah, I'm good. I'm all good with that, Chief. So I don't know, Anonymous. We tried to answer your question. Maybe I don't know. That's one that, like, if you think about it, like after we get done recording, you'll probably be like, "Oh, I could have done this."
Yeah. It's like a shower thought kind of a thing. Yeah. Maybe once Daniel's card creator is done, then can do some stuff there. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we got a question from Cards in the Cupboard, which
I'm pretty sure this is Ben Hull, which is from Mark's playgroup.
Okay. I don't know if I've met him. I don't think so. I don't really make it out to the Northeast a whole lot, but I do remember a little interaction on Discord. I'm like, did you bring the whole cupboard or something like that? And he said he like had to tape it shut so his brother didn't get into it, or I don't know. But anyways, someone who stores their cards in the cupboard, I guess. His question is, in your opinion, what do you think will be the top 3 most popular offenses and defenses seen at Nationals? And as a follow-up question, if you were to, hypothetically, bet money on which deck will win Nationals, which deck would you choose?
This is interesting because you're choosing the deck and not the pilot.
Right.
So
that makes it a little tricky. Yeah, I mean, I could just say I'll just pick the deck that I'm playing, but, you know.
Well, I mean, that didn't work out for you last year.
Well, all right. Anyways, moving on to the next question.
I do think that this is one of those that we'll get a little bit more potentially in depth with, kind of just talking about what we expect when we do the next episode, where we're, talking about who we expect to win certain categories. I mean, obviously I feel like decks and things like that, archetypes and things, what defense they're running, that kind of stuff will probably get mentioned. So you might get a little bit more value from this type of question on the next episode, as me and Jake toss that back and forth. But I mean, we'll still do a little bit to answer it here. Yeah. But how many of the top 3 offenses, let's just start with the baseline. How many are not GOC? Is it 0?
That's kind of what I was leaning towards, just saying like, yeah, the 3 most popular offenses are all the same offense.
Yeah, you got
just maybe tweaked slightly differently. One's got Nazareth,
GOC Barf. You've got Nativity. And then you got Disciples.
Yep.
There you go.
Probably like Disciples, Nazareth, Gospel, Barf, Nativity. I think those are probably the top three. If we had to bring up some honorable mentions, I would say some kind of Genesis offense and probably like
Who's
an
playing
Angels.
that?
Well, I don't know. Jared, he's not going to be there, I guess.
I really haven't seen anybody playing Genesis much this season.
But Guardian will be legal, so it's like there's a possibility.
Yeah, and apparently I said I thought it would be in at least one deck in the top 8, which I'm not so sure about now. But
so I mean, I think it's at least worth an honorable mention, but I don't expect to be one of the 3 most popular. But then I think Angels, I think the Daniel offense is kind of just an Angels with Daniel offense now. It's what I've seen a little bit more of. Kind
the
of
better version is
playing with myself a little more. Yeah. So I think that's probably another popular, but probably not one of the most popular offenses that you'll see.
I'll give you an outlier. Okay. Because obviously we know about like the top competitive players and they're going to be playing a lot of GOC. But I think last year, I feel like there was a couple of people that was like, I expected to play a bunch of GOC and I didn't. I played, Infinidab, I played Flood, I played these other things.
Yep.
So I think if I were to blend the two, I feel like it wouldn't be out of the question to at the middle of the field and lower. And I'm not saying that it can't do well, but I'm just saying like I feel like there could be a collection of a lot of players playing some themes like musicians. And I think that musicians are always popular. People's always asking questions about them. And then if you blend that with like Ruth offenses using David Heart After God, David's harp, things like that, music leader, I feel like Infinidab and all that just kind of bundles together. If we say that that's a deck, I could see that being one of the top 3 most popular for volume just because of, it being more accessible for people to get their hands on some of those cards, being that they're a little bit older. It might be a deck that you have laying around and maybe you haven't built new decks this tournament season and you're just coming to nationals. You could pick up just the theme you like to play. And then like that, there's just a lot of people that like playing that theme. Like I acknowledge that I don't think blue is well suited to compete with the current meta as is, but I also haven't done a lot of investigation into that because I've been so busy with work and podcast and traveling to a bunch of tournaments. I haven't done a lot of my own deck building this season, but I feel like I like playing blue, whether it's good or not. And I feel like there's people that like playing musicians and white, like Ruth and stuff.
Posties.
Poor posties. So yeah, I feel like when you say popular, you're not necessarily asking the best.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that, then I could see some other themes popping in.
Yep. And we're going to need some of those people to keep Jay in the bottom half. So,
doesn't Jay keep himself there anyway? I think he does it all on his own.
Just all the people that are playing like just evil dominant or like full evil dominant lineups. So I got something coming and then all evil dominance.
Yeah.
To make his Peter's curse not useful.
I do think that like when you talk about the defense, like flipping that over, we talk about offenses. I feel like you can almost just foregone like when we talk about the top decks at nationals, you as a player that's in tune with the competitive scene, I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily really in tune with it. I just hang around it. It rubs off a little bit, but I feel like I can assume what the offense is, and then most of those decks are defined by which defense they're playing to pair it up with.
Sure.
And so I think the defense is where you get into a little bit more. Like I feel like there's a black and gray that's still really good. I think there's obviously on each side of that, there's a more black and then a more gray focused version of that, but just black gray. You have the Herods that are always going to remain popular as long as you can still get that potent of a defense in such few card slots.
Yep.
You've got Crimson, which is going to be your thieves, and then blended in also with your orange stuff. Orange is going to have the play stuff, and I feel like you're going to get a little bit more variety in defense than you will offense when it comes to players kind of at the top. I don't know if that's 100% accurate, because some people would think slight changes in the offense and the strategic approach might be a bigger change or a bigger difference. But I feel like most of the biggest differences between the decks of the top players will be like what defense they do and what they're expecting to do to try to slow down an opponent. And I feel like that's where a lot of the meta calls or whatever, like zigging and zagging, is going to happen. Is like, I'm expecting to see this, and this is how I'm going to try to answer it.
Yeah, so I probably do Herod's at the number 1 slot for most popular. I think black and gray and mono black are probably the next 2. Not sure exactly what order those should be in. And then I think Thieves is after that. I think Thieves are good, but I'm just not sure that people have really tried it out as much. Like, it seems like they were kind of just, we talked about this a little bit earlier in the episode, but they're, I think when we were talking about Tyler's Crimson video, but it's a defense that I think it requires more slots, so people are going to be using it in a little more balanced decks, and I think fewer people have explored it relative to some of the other defenses, and to where we're close enough to nationals where switching over to Thieves might not be what you're in your best interest, even if it is maybe a overall better defense for your deck.
I think there's probably more people that would switch off of Thieves to go to Herod's just to free up more additional card slots for utility and maybe a few more offensive speed cards.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of it's weird, because if you actually look at a balanced deck now and show it to most players, they'd probably be like, oh, that's D heavy.
Yeah.
And no, I've seen D heavy and that's not it. But like, people are just so like spoiled, I guess, with the fact that Herod's can take 10 slots and you've got a defense.
Yeah.
That's enhancements characters. And they don't have to have their own support card, because guess what? We already talked about it. Herod's Temple is going to protect them, and you're already running that for your offense. So you get the bang for your buck there on that side of it too.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, looking at, Zach's, North Central Regionals deck, it is, literally, 10 cards, 7 evil characters, 3 evil enhancements. And I guess, stocks is maybe, you can consider that part of the defense, but then also, Herod's Temple is, works both ways. But Herods are definitely going to be able to make the most use out of it relative to any other defense.
I think that those are some, I guess, long-winded ways to say that we don't know what the 3 most popular are, except for we feel confident that it's GOC.
Yep.
And then if you had to bet money, if you were a betting man, you would probably bet on yourself. But I'd put my money on Justin. But if you had to just say, like, if you had to throw it out now, just not putting any real money on it or anything, just in your thoughts, what do you think is the winning deck? Do you think it is GOC offense, mostly disciples based with black gray? Like, where do you see it?
Yeah. Man, I wish I could say
and why is it
otherwise.
nativity? I'm just kidding. I tried, Tim.
I wish I could say otherwise, but I feel like just something similar to Nick Marshall's deck from last year is still probably the best deck overall out there. Like, I think there are decent like counter decks and ways to play against it, but I just don't know those are good enough just on the whole to get to that top spot and to actually be able to play the games against those decks. And then even still, it just seems like enough of a toss up to me where I think they're going to have the better overall advantage. I could see an argument for nativity, but I think just kind of the general GOC good stuff with probably a Herod's defense is maybe what I would go on if I wasn't going with whatever I ended up playing, which is probably not going to be that.
All right. Well, look, we've got one more question, but I want to say one more thing on this one but I don't want to like go into a big rabbit hole.
All right.
But do you think, or would you agree with this? I think that GOC offenses are so popular and they're so good. And the reason that they're so good is that you can know what the opponent's doing. You can know the lines of play, but still you're kind of at the mercy of, I guess, some luck based, whether you drew your ways to answer things, and you're limited on how you can stop it, even though you know what's coming. And I think that the resiliency of that, like, you can know that I'm going first turn Matthew and I'm getting resurrection and I'm doing this. And at the end of the day, you still got to find a way to stop it and account for all the card advantage that I'm going to get up front. And I feel like that's what's led to it being so popular over the past 2-3 years since it came out. And I don't know that we're going to see an end to that. Like in the next tournament season, I don't know if II is going to be what pushes people away from that, unless that can also do some of the same thing. So it's like nativity is really good, but yep. I think anyone that's playing nativity would tell you that if your opponent knows what you're going to do, or you telegraph plays in nativity, you're going to do worse with it than you would if you can punch whatever line of play kind of out of nowhere without them being able to see it coming. So if you grab a specific card from your reserve, like Flight into Egypt, okay, well, now they kind of know what you're doing at that point. And yep. I feel like you can know that I just went Patmos and got Matthew, but there's just not a lot you can do to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why it's so popular and remains so popular.
Yeah, and just the amount of value that you get from those heroes. There's multiple ways to get multiple heroes in battle, very easily between Resurrection, the Ascension, Good Seed, and you just get a lot of value from those and their strong abilities, and other themes just don't have quite that same level of access, and of course then the Matthew to get it all started.
The last question here is from Maxwell Hopebringer. This is your boy.
Yeah, Maxwell.
And he says, what are some underplayed themes that are very good in the current meta? I'm going to put you on the clock so that we can get this episode wrapped up. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Give me 2 or 3 themes that you think can be good in the current meta, whether they're offensive themes or defensive.
Okay. I mean, the tricky part about this question is that, that if something is very good in the current meta, then it's probably not underplayed. But one of the things, or one of the themes that comes to mind is just like a Old Testament gray, like, mono gray defense. I think, something that's using some of the Southeast defense aspects with the resin and Damascus, the Captain of the Chariots, getting a little bit of that play first potential, or at least the equip with Gold Shield. Like, I think those can be good, and then built with like Naaman and some of the new Israel's Rebellion gray stuff. I think that's a little bit underplayed, and it's hard to say very good, but I think it is, it's still a good defense. I think you have to build it kind of maybe adjusted for the meta, maybe have a few more evil dominance to support, some add to battle kind of stuff, but something that I would say is good. If I were to come up with an offense, I feel like mono silver is something that, like, I don't know, maybe with Daniel, like it's not really underplayed, but I think that it's still another good theme that you don't see quite as much. So I don't know, that would be my kind of the 2 things that come to mind right away for me. So
okay,
did I make it 2 minutes?
Sure. I do think that, what is the term oxymoron or whatever, like when you underplayed themes that are very good, and like you said, if they're very good, they're not necessarily underplayed. So I think if you take away very good and you just say can be good, and so that you give yourself a little bit, like, I'm not saying that what I'm about to say would run with GOC infused, quick paced offenses that allow you to play a slim defense like Herod's, and just you speed through your deck, and every game is pretty consistent. But I do think that there is prophets, And I think Prophets have a lot of tools. And I think that getting a little creative with how you can blend things in. Elijah choosing a blocker is still good. Moses coming down to stop territory class things is good. I mean, you could do what your brother was doing with his GoldenEye deck, part-time Moses, as I called it, with, was it, 20 shekels to bounce him, play your stuff, and then put him back down. But on top of that, you're also you're getting a hand look with it as well, potential. So there's I think a pretty decent Prophets deck that you could build. And I know one thing that I wanted to do when GOC came out was find a way to do GOC character playing transfiguration to go and choose the blocker Elijah and then Cloud of Witness Moses. And I don't know that we've necessarily seen that or seen it much, but I feel like that's something that could be done. I know that Jeremy was playing some version of being able to grab at least Cloud of Witness Moses and play it within a GOC offense. Yep. And I think...
Yeah, Bill Voigt was kind of running a similar thing.
I think the problem is that we're so ingrained into, we have to keep up with the meta that those strategies that require you to play at a slower pace, even if it does have its own counters to slow down the game, it's just, we don't necessarily want to do that because it's hard to justify not being the person playing that quick, fast-paced deck. Yep. And getting out to that big resource advantage early. So I think Prophets could be pretty good. And it's ironic because I know that Maxwell was playing Prophets. Heck, he beat me in the Lackey Grand Prix playing Prophets. Yep. Although we did have to restart our game. If he's honest, and he will tell you honest, I probably get him pretty good the first game, and then we restarted and I had a horrible draw. So not justifying, not taking away the fact that he won, but that's just kind of the way that I think Prophets would play. Some games you're going to do really good when the draw hits for you, and then maybe it's not going to keep up with the meta decks if they outrace you.
Yep.
Type of thing.
Sounds like it was one of those games that you had to write home to your wife about, though. Losing to it. He's becoming less of an RLK, but he's still still a younger player, and but he's very good. I think
he's an RSM, a random small man.
There we go. I like it. I think maybe the one other thing to bring up with this question would be not necessarily a theme, but maybe just a card that does kind of work with certain themes well. Peter's Curse is one that I think we're seeing a little bit more of, but I think it is very good in the current meta. I know I've gotten bit by it a couple times with people who have kind of worked it into their decks because they're playing a few more evil dominance, kind of like we saw with Jay's deck of the week, or they're just playing a lot of the acceleration good dominance where they're playing them on turn 1, turn 2, then activating Peter's Curse, and so I think that is. It's not necessarily specific to any theme. I think we maybe see it a little bit more with Thieves, maybe with Nativity, because they are doing more of those acceleration dominance. But I think that's a card that's a little bit underplayed that's very good in the current meta. And I think it was on Babuni Tim's list of the 10 cards that he was looking forward to at Nationals, right?
He put that out today, didn't he?
Yes. I
see what you did there. That's the art of podcasting. You can't talk about stuff that came out after we started recording the episode.
Well, I mean,
because we didn't talk about that in the recent news where we did the community content. But yes, Babuni Tim today. So this is Monday. We're finishing up the recording of the episode. He put out a list of cards that are on his radar, and similar to, I put this in the Zerubbabel's Temple, was it's similar, in thought to what me and Jake were talking about, cards that you're not seeing very much that you need to be aware might increase in numbers. People might find comfort in a CBN, Confusion of Mind, to use their art slot for that versus something that's going to get hit with negate neutrals, things like that. So we were talking about cards that aren't seeing very much play that could increase in popularity at Nationals. And then Tim put this list together, and it's more of the 10 things that are 10 cards that you really need to be aware of and how to play around them and expect to see them on the other side of the table and have a plan for as you build your deck for nationals. So it's kind of the same thought, but just like that's the popular ones that you definitely have to answer for. And if you can't account for what you would do facing those, then you probably need to rework your deck in the deck building phase to be able to account for that. Otherwise, I mean, I'll be seeing you at the mid tables.
Yeah. Well, people can thank me for not abiding by podcast time and, going by, getting whatever's the most recent out. Because, I mean,
yeah. Hey, that's
if
fine.
they waited until the next podcast releases, like on, they're listening on the way to nationals and are just hearing about this at that point.
It's too late.
Yeah, it's gonna be too late at that point to change your deck too much.
It's also the fact that it's a tradition here at the podcast to break down the fourth wall. So you just did it again. That's all. So no harm, no foul.
Hey, I mean, maybe I could be the official co-host, sticking with tradition. No. No.
I mean, I think we're pretty well off with Jake now.
Yep, I agree.
He's fully ingrained into it. So.
He's just got to stop going on mission trips and stuff and shirking his responsibilities on the podcast here.
Yep. But I guess that's the end of the questions here. And I mean, that's a pretty loaded mailbag. Questions from the past couple weeks. Yep. I guess this is where we're going to wrap up this episode. Is there anything you want to say to the beautiful people out there? Your last message potentially before now. Are you going to release a video?
I mean,
did you say that?
I'll have at least one before nationals in the next couple of weeks here. So,
So maybe you'll get another opportunity, but is there anything you want to say to the beautiful people in case you don't get to say anything before nationals? What do you want to leave with the people?
Play posties, man. If we're wrong about the three most popular offenses and posties are in those top three, it's going to make my day. So I want to try out Jay's deck, see if it feels like it has the stuff to at least,
if it has the backbone,
if it has the potential to at least, not make me look bad if I use it, then I might consider trying it out. So,
well, I guess what you do have going for you in your favor is that last year he built a deck that was pretty good through the tournament season, and someone played it at nationals better than him. So maybe this is the repeat of that. You could take it and play it better than him.
I could give it a shot.
I mean, I don't know if you can quite pull it off like Jalissa did, though. But whatever. So I feel like we're bagging on Jay a little too much. So Jay, I just want to stress out there that we do love you, man, and we're excited to see you in a few weeks at nationals. So
for sure,
you guys have not pre-registered for nationals. Make sure that you do that. If you're going to try to play in that side event, then make sure you register so that they can kind of have a head count and kind of know who to expect for that. And you get some awesome prizes to boot for doing both pre-registering for that and also playing in that tournament. Yep. Top 2, getting those deck boxes and getting a chance to be involved in Mr. Classic. Try to take the belt away from Mr. Booster Jones himself, our number 1 on the power rankings. But we've been doing a lot of talking, so we're going to stop here and end the episode. Peace.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Threshing Floor Podcast. Help us grow our community by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're at it, be sure to subscribe or follow so you don't miss the next episode. And we'll talk to you next time on the Threshing Floor Podcast.